Elizabeth Leah Thiel is the director of the Therapeutic Horticulture program at Wilmot Gardens at the University of Florida, where she teaches a certificate in horticultural therapy. She is a licensed landscape architect, a master gardener, and a registered horticultural therapist. She has bachelor's degree in both architecture and arts history from the University of Illinois, Chicago, and a master's degree in landscape architecture from the University of Pennsylvania. She serves as the editor-in-chief of the peer-reviewed Journal of Therapeutic Horticulture for 15 years. She also works with the NParks Board to bring therapeutic horticulture and therapeutic gardens to Singapore. In the past 2 years, Elizabeth has been teaching the Certificate Therapeutic Horticulture program at Nghi An Polytechnic. I'll now pass the screen time to Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here. Okay, great. So I will get started. Well, thank you so much for being here with me this morning. For me, it's night, but I am glad to be here. And what I'm going to do today is talk to you about therapeutic horticulture, and specifically about a couple of programs that really do employ the power of nature and plants to increase physical and mental well-being, and to also enhance the quality of life. So I want to show you some examples of how that actually works. But before I do that, I want to look kind of at the big picture and provide some definitions of practice to you, so that you kind of have an understanding of what this is all about. So the first thing I want to talk about are the definitions of practice that directly support the role of a horticultural therapist. So that is going to be horticultural therapy and therapeutic horticulture. The definition of horticultural therapy is that it's the participation in horticultural activities facilitated by a registered horticultural therapist to achieve specific goals within an established treatment, rehabilitation, or vocational plan. Horticultural therapy is an active process which occurs in the context of an established treatment plan, where the process itself is considered the therapeutic activity rather than the end product. And we can find horticultural therapy programs in a variety of healthcare, rehabilitative, residential settings. So horticultural therapy programs document outcomes for the participants on an individual basis. Now, therapeutic horticulture is the participation in horticultural activities facilitated by a registered horticultural therapist or other professionals with training in the use of horticulture as a therapeutic modality to support program goals. Therapeutic horticulture is a process through which participants enhance their well-being through active or passive involvement in plant and plant-related activities. Therapeutic horticulture programs are also found in a wide variety of healthcare, rehabilitative, and residential settings. So, and these definitions are from the American Horticultural Therapy Association. And so really the difference here is that the program types are differentiated on the basis of whether we're looking at goals on the individual basis, like one by one, person by person, or whether we're looking at the whole group and coming up with goals for the group. Heller and Capra, who have written a couple of textbooks on horticultural therapy, define it as horticultural therapy being a professionally conducted, client-centered treatment modality that utilizes horticulture activities to meet specific therapeutic or rehabilitative goals of its participants. So the focus is really to maximize social, cognitive, physical, and or psychological functioning, and to enhance general health and wellness. Another way to look at this is based on the definition of a couple of other people in the horticultural therapy world, Diane Ralph and Sherry Dorn, and they describe horticultural therapy as including 3 essential elements. It's a practice that serves defined client groups, so those with identified therapeutic or rehabilitation needs, that it is goal-driven, so it's based on standard treatment procedures, and that it uses the cultivation of plants for its primary treatment activities. And they really underscore the importance of the presence of all 3 of these elements to distinguish horticultural therapy from other types of garden interactions. Now, in reality, there are probably, I know, it's not probably, there are a lot more therapeutic horticulture programs taking place where the goals are based on the needs of the group as a whole versus the individual. So this simple diagram shows you kind of the difference between horticultural therapy and therapeutic horticulture. They're all about goals, they're about plants, they're facilitated by a trained therapist, but they're either serving an individual client who has individual goals, or they're serving an entire client group that has common goals that they're working toward. One thing I just want to add in here quickly, a little bit of research background. There was groundbreaking research published by Roger Ulrich, an American researcher, in 1984 that really was a springboard to many more studies on the impact of nature on human health. So he was looking at hospital patients who had undergone gallbladder surgery to see if the view from their hospital room might have any impact on the effect, or I should say any effect on their recovery. He found that those patients that had hospital rooms that had views of trees had shorter hospital stays, they needed far fewer narcotic pain medications, and they received more positive written comments from staff in their medical records versus those who had a view of a brick wall or a building. So this research and that of some other environmental psychologists like Rachel and Stephen Kaplan really gave credibility to the idea that exposure to nature can actually improve health. Their studies also then provided a foundation for many more studies on that people-plant connection. So that was really an important foundational finding. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of therapeutic horticulture. We can really categorize benefits into about 5 basic areas: cognitive benefits, social, emotional, physical, and physiological. So what cognitive benefits can therapeutic horticulture provide? Well, participating in a program can arouse curiosity because plants are a source for exploration. Clients can increase their power of observation through a new awareness of the environment or seasonal qualities, things that are changing. They can also increase their knowledge with exposure to plants, learning their plant names, the care, propagation techniques. They can learn new skills through things like planting and propagating and maintaining plants. And clients can also increase vocabulary because new activities and skills usually involve learning new terms. Other cognitive benefits are that you can learn or relearn number concepts by counting seeds or cuttings or pots. You can also increase your attention span and focus because the sensory stimulation component of working with plants really increases engagement and motivation. And we can also stimulate memory because certain plants and certain smells can really trigger memory. Some social benefits. Well, we can help increase communication skills by doing things like providing the participants providing information or instructions to others about plants or taking care of plants. We can increase interaction within the group by sharing ideas and sharing plants, working toward a common goal. And we can also increase interaction outside of the group because plant work really provides new, interesting, and familiar topics of conversation with people that may be outside of your program. There are a lot of emotional benefits as well. Clients can increase their feelings of self-worth because taking care of plants is a very worthy cause. It makes the world a better place. We can help to increase confidence through short tasks with immediate and obvious results that emphasize success and the learning of new skills. And we can also increase self-esteem because as you experience that success, then you're going to start feeling better about yourself and about your abilities. Therapeutic horticulture can also help to increase or to promote interest or enthusiasm through excitement and anticipation about what's going to happen tomorrow with your plant, what it's going to look like next week, next month. We can also really help to promote and satisfy a client's creative drive by helping them to discover hidden talents or encourage exploration. Things like provide opportunities for things like self-expression. Clients can relieve aggression or tension, because that physical exertion that can be involved in gardening can really alleviate those aggressive feelings. We know that exposure to nature reduces stress and allows for restorative experiences. And we can also help orient to reality orientation. This is like experiencing the relationships of daily changes, late changes, seasonal changes, and plant growth can help orient us. Some physical benefits. Well, we can certainly help provide some exercise at whatever level is appropriate. There's lots of opportunities for various levels of exercise in the garden or in the greenhouse. We can encourage the increase of endurance. It's a lot easier to increase endurance when the activity that you're doing is something that you enjoy and that occupies your mind. We can also combine with physical therapy and occupational therapy work. The horticulture part can provide some more meaningful activities. And we can also increase those ADL skills, the activities of daily living skills and independence that they can lead to. Many of the skills that we learn in the therapeutic horticulture setting can be carried over to other parts of life. And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, show you an example. And we can, of course, develop and increase fine and gross motor skills. We can do this by moving plants or other objects, using sprayers, manipulating soil and seeds, and likewise increase eye-hand coordination. And then finally, the physiological benefits, which of course are strongly related to the physical benefits. We know that work with plants can lower blood pressure, it can lower heart rate, it can lower cortisol level, and all of those things can help to relieve stress. And of course, stress has very physical effects on our body. So that's a really important component. All right, the next thing I want to do is show you some examples of how this might work. I'm going to introduce you to a place called Misericordia Home. We're kind of looking at a component of it right here. Obviously, it's wintertime there. This is in Chicago. And I'm going to introduce you to some of the residents who live there and who participated in the horticultural therapy program that I started up there. So Misericordia Home is a residential facility in Chicago that's home to more than 600 individuals with developmental and physical disabilities that range from mild to profound. It's a 31-acre campus. It has a variety of housing settings, from more what you'd think of as a unit where people are very medically involved or really need help to do everything, all the way to apartment living where the individuals may live on their own in the apartment, but maybe there's somebody down the hall, a staff person that can help if something comes up. So the total range of functioning levels. I was really fortunate to be able to start up a horticultural therapy program at Misericordia. I will tell you that I didn't even know that term when I started working there. And not long after I started, we got a grant to build a greenhouse specifically for the program. So I'm gonna just tell you a little bit about this program and introduce you to some of the residents. Some residents come to the greenhouse for the sensory experience. That's relaxing, it's soothing, it's kind of a very different place than their usual work areas or education areas. They participate in activities in the greenhouse, but they aren't paid for their work. But most residents in this program actually did come to the greenhouse for a job, and they would get paid for their work on different scales, depending on their functioning level and also the kind of work that they did. Most production activities can be educational, therapeutic, but it's really important that the residents have an opportunity for creativity and self-expression while they're still maintaining quality. One of the goals of this greenhouse program, this therapeutic horticulture program, was to eventually make the program self-sustaining through plant sales. So the quality of the plants was pretty important. You can see here that one of the staff is introducing a plant to one of the residents who's smelling it and feeling it, and it's a lot easier to remember something when it has a sensory quality as well. So the program stresses education, learning about the plants, their names, techniques at whatever level is appropriate for that particular individual. As I said, when the plant has a strong sensory quality, maybe it's a bright color, it's got a fuzzy leaf, it's got a fragrance, then residents seem to be more drawn to those plants and they engage with them more, and that helps them to learn better. These educational opportunities and sensory opportunities really helps the residents to develop a knowledge base that in turn helps them to develop a sense of ownership over their work that they're doing there, over those surroundings. And it gives them an opportunity to talk about the plants and about their work to customers, which then helps them to develop and maintain a connection to the community. And that's really important. But maybe more important is the feeling that these residents experience of self-worth, that their existence actually matters. Many of these residents have been protected and taken care of their entire lives. And in the program, the horticultural therapy program, those roles are reversed. They are now in charge of something that depends on them to live and grow and to thrive. And while not every resident understands that intellectually, they get it in their hearts, and you can see it in their eyes and in their smiles and even in their self-esteem. Now, some activities, this is a production-oriented greenhouse, so some activities require things like clippers or rooting hormone, tools that are not going to be appropriate for every resident to use. Rather than excluding those residents from these activities, one of the best techniques is to form a production line so that everybody can feel part of that finished job. As an example, maybe we're taking cuttings one day. So one person's going to handle the clippers and take the cutting. Another person's going to strip off those bottom leaves. Maybe another person dunks the cutting into the water, passes it on to somebody else who puts it in the rooting hormone. Meanwhile, somebody else is mixing up soil and filling pots. Another person can take the cutting and putting it in the soil, and then somebody else can water it in. So there's a lot of tasks here that are at a lot of different functioning levels. And this group of tasks really represents things that people of any functioning level can participate in. And by creating that production line to complete the job, we're minimizing feelings of inability and we're maximizing feelings of cooperation, completion, and ultimately success. There are also a lot of maintenance activities in a greenhouse that need to be completed, and the residents in the program are responsible for those as well. A lot of them provide exercise, and that's great. And they're also good for learning responsibility for the greenhouse environment. You know, here's just a couple of examples: washing some pots, sweeping off the tables after a work session. Now, all of the residents at Misericordia work on formal goals and objectives to improve skills and to provide reasonable challenges and work toward independence at whatever level they're capable. And a good number of the residents in the horticultural therapy program work on at least one of those goals in the greenhouse setting. Now, remember I told you that the difference between horticultural therapy and therapeutic horticulture was that horticultural therapy is looking at individualized treatment plans and individualized treatment goals. So a greenhouse job is given to a resident that relates to a skill that they're working on. It could be to increase their attention span or to stay on task. Maybe it's about following directions or controlling their anger, or maybe it's about developing appropriate social skills. So I'm going to show you a few examples of these kinds of interventions that can take place in this kind of a program. This is Mark, and Mark has cerebral palsy. One of the things that he's working on is increasing strength and dexterity. When Mark first came to the program, and actually you can probably tell from this picture, we're not in the greenhouse. This was actually before we had the greenhouse, and we were working in a classroom building or classroom within a building using grow lights and some different kinds of things. You can imagine in a setting like that, it was very dry, the air was very dry, and we needed to help humidify, add some water. Spraying plants is a great way to do that. Now, as I said, Mark has cerebral palsy. You can see his right arm there is kind of curled up. His left arm, he had some more use of, but when he first came to the program, he could not even wrap his hands around a spray bottle. So we wanted to find some ways for him to improve his gross and fine motor skills. And at the beginning, staff worked with him hand over hand. We would literally put our hands over his hands and squeeze the trigger on that spray bottle. But very slowly, he increased his strength, he increased his technique, and his ability to do it independently. And this was really a major accomplishment for Mark, because now he could do a very important job, truly a very important job, independently. And with that came feelings of self-worth, self-confidence, and increased self-esteem. And another really wonderful benefit of this was that this new skill was carried over to other aspects of his life. Things like picking up a fork, grasping a pencil, having better control over the joystick of his electric wheelchair. So this led to increased independence in many other aspects of his life. And remember, I told you that therapeutic horticulture can really help to increase those activities of daily living skills. So this is a really great example of that. Now, this is Virginia on the left, and Virginia came to live at Misericordia in her 50s after living at home her whole life. She was painfully shy, and that really isolated her from others, making it really difficult for her to adapt to her new life at Misericordia. So her team decided to try her at the garden program and found that she relaxed there. She found that it was a familiar setting. She'd done a lot of gardening at home with her mom. And so there were some neutral things there for that she could kind of start to talk about with people doing some similar work. It was a more familiar environment, which made it more comfortable for her, which helped her to relax a little bit and then be able to work on some of those skills. As she became more comfortable with some garden-related conversation, then she actually found it a little bit easier for her to talk about herself with the people that she had established some of those relationships with. Now, Mary Jean here, on the other hand, had the opposite problem as Virginia. Mary Jean talked so much that nobody else could get a word in edgewise, and she would talk about the same thing over and over, her mother, which wasn't really related to other people's interests. And this was also getting in the way of her establishing friendships. She also came to Misericordia quite late in her life. So with staff help and the use of directed goals, Mary Jean began to use the garden and its activities as a topic of conversation. And this, of course, had more interest for people around her. She talked about her own work at first, but eventually learned to listen to other people talk about their work in the garden and the greenhouse as well. And this helped her to realize that she actually had an interest in what other people were doing. And it helped her to avoid always focusing on herself. Now, it's really important to understand that these changes are not happening overnight, and they aren't always easy, but they are the result of very carefully constructed goals that are facilitated and charted by trained staff. Gaining skills, changing behaviors, these things can often take a really long time and be the result not just of a single goal, but rather the series of goals that build upon each other. This is Judy, and Judy has cerebral palsy as well. You know, many of the very physically disabled residents, especially those with cerebral palsy, function intellectually at a very high level. So finding challenging work that they can do independently can be really difficult because we want to stimulate their minds as well as their bodies. And this brings me to a really important point. What I believe very strongly about working with people with disabilities or anybody that you might find in a therapeutic horticulture program is that it's really important to provide that person with as much independence as possible. Sometimes you have to get pretty creative in order to do that. An example of this that we came up with for John here, John was really capable of watering plants, but he had a really tough time assessing whether a plant needed to be watered or not. So we devised a plan where in the morning, a staff member would go throughout the greenhouse and stick a flag. You can see some red and blue flags here. They would stick a flag in every pot that needed to be watered. You know, each flag represented a cup of water. So if a pot had 6 flags in it, it needed 6 cups of water. When John arrived to work, he would get the bucket of water, he'd get his cup and his cart, and he would start watering plants. And the flags really took the guesswork out of it. As we had more residents that wanted to water, we could add more flag colors, and that was really great. So several people could do it at once. Now, John also struggled with letting staff know when he was finished with a job. He would often just end and stand there and wait till somebody noticed that he wasn't working anymore. And so we were working on him, you know, coming to a staff member and informing them that he was finished with his job. With the watering flags in this job, he learned that when there were no more, we could make this association for him. When there were no more flags to pull, then he should bring them all to a staff member to let them know that he was finished. And another benefit that we didn't anticipate was that when John was finished, he had this big pile of flags on his cart that really served as tangible evidence of all the work that he had done. And that really made him feel great. So in addition to providing as much independence as possible for a participant, it's also really essential to help him or her understand and feel the importance of their work, whatever that might be, so that they know it's meaningful work and not just an activity to pass the time. So back to Judy. As I said, she's very limited in her, physically limited in her movements, and she needs hand-over-hand assistance to do almost everything. She had a little bit of lateral movement in one of her arms. So in thinking about independence, we came up with some techniques, really simple, but took a little bit of thought. What we did is we took her wheelchair tray. I wish I had a picture of this, but I don't. Her wheelchair tray, and we cut a hole in it. And then we put it upside down, like a traffic cone, in that hole, so she could push the soil over into the hole, and then it would drop down onto the floor where we set a pot. One of her goals was to fill pots. And when she first told me that, I thought, oh man, I don't know how we're ever going to make that happen, just knowing her physical abilities. But just with some creative thought, a few of us got together and brainstormed a way to make this happen. And sure enough, she was able to do that with just a little bit of accessible techniques. Now, Judy functions at a very high level intellectually, and she can also talk. Many people with cerebral palsy cannot. So she was a great person to talk to people that came into the greenhouse as well, and that was a special job for her. And then finally, the last young person I want to introduce you to is Mark. Mark is a fairly high-functioning individual with Down syndrome. Mark came into the Therapeutic horticulture therapy program with some pretty significant behavioral issues. And his planning team thought it would be worth seeing if the greenhouse would be a good one for the greenhouse environment would be a good one for him, be maybe calming. We very quickly realized that one of the things that upset Mark, that set him off into a behavior incident, was being told what to do, because it made him feel like he didn't have any control. That was tough because we were relying on Mark to do some important things around the greenhouse. And if we couldn't tell him what to do, how was that ever going to work? So we got together and we brainstormed, and we ended up coming up with an idea of setting up a mailbox for Mark. We put it in the greenhouse, and we would write up a job list for him every day before he arrived. You can see him holding it there, and we put it into his mailbox. It was kind of like getting mail in a way. He was really excited about this because the residents at Agritechnology don't have mailboxes, so this was a really special thing for him. It was kind of like getting mail, I guess. Now, Mark couldn't read. And one of the interesting things to me was that even though a staff member would still have to read the job list to him, he didn't see that as being told what to do. I guess maybe because it was written down on the paper, and because he got to go get that paper himself, and he got to choose which staff member to take it to. So that maybe helped him feel that sense of retaining some control. You can see this would be just an example of what one of those job lists might look like. Oftentimes we would put 2 items on the job list, and then in the handwritten one, you can see on the right, we often would say, when you finish these jobs, you can choose one. So his behavioral incidents decreased significantly. They certainly didn't disappear altogether. And again, it did not happen overnight, but they decreased to a point where they were pretty easy to manage, and they no longer got in the way of his day. And the amazing thing was that within a few weeks, we were getting reports from his other work areas and other parts of campus that his behavior had also improved dramatically there as well. And that, of course, was a really wonderful thing. Here's Mark relaxing outside of the greenhouse after a day of work. And in this case, his choice of doing his own job was making sure that the seats were still functioning. But I put this picture in here because I think it's so important in these kinds of programs that the participants take some time to pause, that you give them some time to pause from time to time and really take in and enjoy and recognize all the great hard work that they've done. So the horticultural therapy program at Misericordia is really twofold. And I think these should be the goal of any type of program. And one is that it provides a therapeutic environment where a person can experience the positive qualities of nature through working with plants and their sensory qualities. And second, it provides dignified, challenging, and meaningful work for those participants, giving each person the opportunity to be as independent as possible. And I want to point out that independence doesn't mean working alone, but rather letting a person take responsibility for and ownership over his or her work. And then by doing that, feeling more fully that he or she has contributed something important, and that their existence matters, that it's meaningful, it's necessary. That concept, feeling like you're contributing and that you're necessary, that's important to all of us, no matter whether we have a disability or a disease or not, because it speaks to our self-esteem and our self-worth. So I hope through these pictures and some descriptions, you're starting to get a sense of what one of these programs might look like. What I want to do next, and I'm hoping this is going to work, is to show you a very short video of our setting and introduce our setting now at University of Florida, and introduce you after this video to some of the groups we work with. So let's see.
I drove by this area every day to and from home, and I was just curious, what is it? Because it was sort of like a jungle. And when I became Dean of the College of Medicine in 2002, I became even more interested because I realized that this was the only remaining green space on the Health Science Center campus. Talking to some people, I thought we should restore it. We decided that the gardens should not just be a place to come sit and enjoy the outer doors, but in fact reflect the activities of the buildings that were all around us. So that was research, education, and patient care.
We were noticing that a lot of people were coming to the gardens to get away from the stressors that are happening around these gardens. And so we thought it was time to make that experience more purposeful, more intentional. And that's when we started the Therapeutic Horticulture program. I have a little brother who had a traumatic brain injury when he was little. And so growing up with that experience, I think I always recognized the importance and the value in people with special circumstances. We are giving people the opportunity to build up their self-esteem and their sense of self-confidence and self-worth. So many of the folks that we've been working with, because of their disability or their disease or their whatever issue they're struggling with, they've felt that they haven't been contributing to society, and that makes them feel bad about themselves. So I feel like it's my job to help them understand the value of what they're doing here in the greenhouse, and that their work really has meaning. We also try to provide a community here so people can really feel like they're part of this space, part of this place, Wilmot Gardens, this greenhouse. And I think building or rebuilding a sense of community for some of our participants is also very important.
I think that a lot of times when people are struggling with mental illness, or they're struggling with a physical disability or any other life trauma or event, that connecting with a stranger that may not be the same age as them, or may not have the same experience as them, or may not have anything in common with them, is a sort of experience that is really valuable. And the horticulture therapy program in particular is so unique because it connects students from the university with people in the community to build connections over something of a third party like plants. And so it's really a unique opportunity to be able to have that experience. Hopefully one day I can become a healthcare professional that incorporates nature and plants into the healthcare setting and practice.
Let's see. There we go. Okay, I hope you could all hear that. I thought it would be helpful as we transition into talking about the Therapeutic Horticulture program that I run now, to just have a sort of a sense of the space. We're very lucky to have the facilities that we do. So the Therapeutic Horticulture program, and you saw this marker in the video, it was given a historic marker from the University of Florida because they are historic gardens. They were first developed in the 1940s. And so that it's kind of a nice relationship that we have there. Some other time I can tell you about the history of the gardens, but this is looking toward the greenhouse from one of the gardens in this area. It's about a 5-acre garden. And we certainly use the gardens a lot for our programming, but the majority happens in the greenhouse. We work with a lot of different populations, and some we wanted to work with a particular population, so we looked for funding. We felt like there was a need in the community, and in other cases we saw a grant that we thought we had a good shot at, and we would write that grant. As a matter of fact, I just submitted a grant for working with a particular population a couple of days ago. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through some of the groups that we've worked with and just give a little bit of brief information on kind of the kinds of things that we're doing. So the first group that we worked with, the first grant we received, was a 2-year research grant that was looking at people with end-stage kidney disease. So these folks all were on dialysis. And it was a research program looking at quality of life. Would participation in therapeutic horticulture have an effect on the quality of life for those individuals? This was a difficult group. These folks were very sick. Unfortunately, we had about 5 people pass away over the 2 years, and it was tough for them to get there, but just showing up showed us how valuable this program was for them. This program really helped us to understand some of the barriers people might have to get to this program. And so it was helpful for us to be able to solve that. We did actually find that the program did have some positive impacts, which was great. About the same time, we received some funding from the Paralyzed Veterans of America. This was focused on veterans with spinal cord injury and disease. And in this program, we were really thinking about physical function, working on eye-hand coordination, gross fine motor skills, also self-efficacy and self-esteem, and movement and those kinds of things. So this was a neat program. We also received some funding from a local foundation called Climb for Cancer. This is geared toward people who are struggling with cancer. The focus of this group was not so much the physical function as it was maybe the emotional, psychological functioning. We were providing opportunities for, the first group were women with breast cancer, and then later on it was open to anybody affected by cancer. But providing some opportunities to engage with nature, to learn new skills, to increase your success at growing plants, also providing opportunities for creative expression and really working hard to create that community of support. We had a lot of different people at different stages of their cancer journey. And so that support they could give each other was really important and very valuable. We also received some funding from the Dana and Christopher Reeve Foundation to work with people with stroke-associated paralysis. So here, mostly we're focusing on physical function. Again, those things like eye-hand coordination, gross fine motor skills, mild exercise, but also cognitive functioning. That's something that's really affected by stroke, memory, processing, sequencing, some things like that. We received some funding from the Center for Movement Disorders at University of Florida to work with people, their patients with Parkinson's disease. This was not a research group, but it really was an exciting one because to my knowledge, and I've been in the field for a pretty long time, I had never heard of another program, therapeutic horticulture program for this population. We had very similar goals to those of the stroke group that I mentioned, eye-hand coordination, things like that, also some of those cognitive skills. Actually, last summer, we received a grant from the Parkinson's Foundation to run another program for people with Parkinson's, and this is a research project. It's actually looking at the effect of therapeutic horticulture on care partners of people with Parkinson's, but those with Parkinson's are also part of the program. We had a group for veterans with mental health issues. That group stopped during COVID, and we've never been able to get it back up and running again. I'm still hopeful for some time in the future, but this group was really focused on increasing self-esteem, providing mild exercise because many of these veterans were very sedentary, but also finding things that helped them tap into skills that they already had but weren't using. So we did a lot of building of stuff, things that involved measuring and cutting and problem solving and teamwork. We received some funding from the Department of Psychiatry at UF to work with inpatients that had been hospitalized for severe depression, and they were undergoing electroconvulsive therapy. This group actually started out as a non-research group, but then transitioned into a research group. And one of the things we were trying to figure out, we knew that participation in a program like this had positive benefits for people with mental health issues, but what we didn't know, and really we still don't know, is what's the dosage effect? You know, what's the optimum dose? How much therapeutic horticulture does a person need to benefit? And how quickly does that positive effect take place? So these are some of the questions that we were trying to answer. We didn't really get good answers. This was actually a tough population to work with because their stays at the hospital were very different. So we weren't really comparing apples to apples. We also have a group of young adults in addiction recovery that come to us as well. Most of the time they're emerging adults, although we often see just adults as well. And here, rather than doing outright therapy, which they're doing all day because they're in a residential program, we are providing a relief from all that work they're doing, kind of a stress reliever. We're getting them involved in creative projects, getting them interested in plants, creating a sort of a record for them of positive distraction, and possibly, especially for the young adults, an interest in a horticulture career in the future. We had a program for a while with young adults with autism spectrum disorder. And this really was a job readiness program where we were teaching some of those soft skills, communication, problem solving, teamwork, some of those kinds of things that would help prepare them for any kind of a job that they might go on to. We also are working currently with a group of young adults with developmental disabilities, and again, working on some of those same kinds of pre-vocational skills. Another group that we've been working with for a few years, and it's really one of my, I shouldn't say my favorite, but just a group that is really close to my heart, is a group for our University of Florida students with stress, anxiety, depression. We have a structured therapeutic horticulture program that they come to relieve stress, to increase resilience. And we did a research project for a couple of years. We continued the program and took a break from the research, and we've just started the research again. We found through our original research statistically significant decreases in stress anxiety for students and statistically significant increases in general resilience and academic resilience. And this was such strong findings that the president of the university has actually donated almost $500,000 to this program to be able to expand it for the students, which is just amazing. So we are starting up our research again to see what more we can find. My hope is to be able to import this program to other universities around the country and maybe even around the world. So this is a list of some of the various ones. I've talked about most of them, and I don't have a ton of time left. So I just want to, actually, I'm going to show you this really quickly. Therapeutic horticulture. So this is an example of a worksheet that we often use. This particular one, you can see at the top says plant pressing. I'm not expecting you to read this, but this is something I would share with my interns, my trained volunteers, about the activity we were doing that day. So the top here kind of just gives the overview of the activity. Here are the different materials that we need. Oops, went too far. The basic directions, but this section is what is important. And the next slide shows you that as a blow up. So here are things that I am suggesting that we emphasize in this session. In this case, sensory stimulation, motor skills, and social interaction. So through this plant pressing activity, we're going to emphasize these three things. And I give some ideas about how to do that. Seeing, touching, smelling leaves, noticing sounds in the garden, the motor skills involved with collecting plants and putting them into the plant press. You can see some pictures here. And also, how can we emphasize social interaction? Talking about what we've chosen, what we're going to do with it, things like that. So this kind of thing is what's elevating it from a horticulture activity to a therapeutic horticulture activity. And because we're working in a group basis, we're working on these areas for everybody in that group. And those decisions have been based on the common needs of a group, like some of the examples I gave you with our different groups. So I'm going to kind of scroll through these really quickly. These are just some examples of some of the kinds of activities we do. Plant pressing, we'll make things after that. Sometimes we decoupage plants and leaves onto things that votives. We work a whole lot with sensory plants. Here we're making herb bowls out of a whole bunch of different herbs. We also do things like lettuce bowls, send lots of stuff home so people can continue to work on their plants at home. Another example of a sensory plant, this is coleus, so many colors, doesn't have a smell, but the stem is square, and that's a very interesting textural thing as well. This is an example of plant pounding, where we're pounding the pigment out onto fabric or paper. You can see some results of some of these kinds of things. So we really do have a really nice mix of plant propagation, kind of traditional horticulture activities, as well as plant art and plant crafts. We'll make terrariums or succulent bowls. We start things from seed and we learn about thinning them, and all throughout we're really trying to emphasize the sensory qualities. Like that upper left, looking at the incredible stems, that's a Swiss chard seedling, those red stems that we might not notice if we didn't slow down and take a chance to look at them. We do a lot of work with succulents because they're so interesting in terms of their colors and their shapes and their textures. So I've given you some different examples of how we use horticulture interventions with different client groups, but I really want to reiterate that an essential aspect of all therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapy programs is to provide a holistic intervention. The goal is not always to cure people or to restore them to their original state of health, but instead to help them to find wholeness again. And so to do that, we really need to meet each client where they are. And I feel like in our programs, we've become pretty good at doing that, creating an environment where people feel accepted, they feel respected, and therefore they're less isolated and they feel more empowered to take on that self-efficacy and that self-esteem. In that video, I talked about the importance to me of creating community through our program, and I've seen the benefits of that manifest in so many ways. With that goes ownership, because when a person feels a sense of ownership over their environment, their community, and their work, then they feel more empowered. And that helps them to build that self-esteem, self-efficacy, and self-worth. I also want to make sure that clients have choices of activities and choices within activities. If they're actively involved in organizing and making those decisions, then they're going to be more engaged and they're going to feel that stronger sense of ownership. Plants don't judge, and nature doesn't tell us what to do. It just is, and it lets us just be. And that way, in that way, it really is an essential component of our journey to health and wellness. So if you guys are interested in learning more about this work, we really have a great program at EN for you. I deliver the last 6 days of this course that offers a lot of hands-on work, exploring activities, practicing techniques, lots of great discussion on different kinds of client groups. There are also a lot of other amazing experts that come before me, and they deliver other important components as well. You can see all the topics that are listed here that get covered in this course, this certificate. Some really great important stuff. And then this last slide gives you an overview of the course as well as the costs, some context. So please scan that QR code if you want to have any more information. I would love to see you in the next course. And I think maybe if there's time, that's a good time to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for coming all the way online from Florida to share with us this very interesting and very meaningful activity. All right. So anyone in the audience, if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and can chat with Elizabeth directly. Okay, while we are waiting for question, I have one. All right, so for me is that usually our workplace is one stressful place. Okay, one source of stress. Is there any way we can apply therapeutic horticulture in our workplace, like office or indoor?
I think so, yes. There's actually been some research that shows that just having plants in the workplace can not only reduce stress, but actually increase productivity. So bringing plants into your workplace is a really great opportunity. One of the things I see happening a lot at our garden, I didn't mention, but we are surrounded by health facilities, research facilities at University of Florida. I see a lot of people doing walking meetings. So they're out there with their clipboard, or they're talking to each other, working through a problem that they have with a patient or something like that, and they're walking the garden. And it's a great way to get a little exercise, a boost of energy, breathe in that fresh air, kind of enjoy the surroundings. So that's a really good technique. And, take those short micro breaks outside. Singapore is so beautiful. There's so many opportunities for green, little, even though they may be micro opportunities, but some great opportunities for some exchange with green spaces. So just think and put your smartphone down, put it in your pocket. Don't take it with you out on that little micro break, so that you focus on the surroundings, not on your screen.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I received a question from George. Is there any therapeutic horticulture study shown any correlation between designing with forest theme or garden setting, greenhouse nursery setting, or comprehensive design to improve dementia in older folks. Which design is more effective for which is more effective for the treatment? Any findings by age group, and how long do they take to treat based on the statistical analysis? So yeah, quite a number of questions.
Yes, that's a lot of questions. They're great
Mm.
questions. We do know some things about people with dementia and nature. There have been some research studies. We do know that exposure to nature can be incredibly helpful for people with dementia, calming them, helping them with their circadian rhythms, which really get thrown off, that orientation. Also, there's research that shows that aggressive episodes or violent episodes, which some people with dementia experience, really get reduced quite a bit. And so there is some stuff. We also know some things about design features of gardens for people with dementia. So that would be something I'd be happy to share some information on that. One last thing, I know there's also been some studies about people in hospital rooms with curtains around their beds that have images of forests on them that have helped reduce stress and pain and some things like that. So sometimes even images of nature can help.
So next question is, who fund the therapeutic programs? Do the patients need to pay for the programs they attend?
That's another great question. For us at University of Florida, the grants that we work on and the donations that we try to get means that our programs are free for everybody. We do have one program, that the addictions recovery program I talked to you about, where the participants pay, but it's part of their entire program, their residential program there. So it's not like they're getting their wallet out every time they come in. But one of our goals is to make this programming free for people, because, you know, oftentimes the people that need these programs may not be in a position where they can work, or they aren't very well off financially. So we are always looking for grants and funding to help make that happen.
And then we have one from Gail. Thanks, Leah, for the wonderful and enlightening sharing. Could you share how was therapeutic culture used in Singapore?
Yeah, you guys are doing some great stuff. And, you know, of course, probably most of you are familiar with the therapeutic gardens that are going up. I think the goal is 30 by 2030. And are there 13 now that are already there? So most of those gardens have some programming that is part of it, where groups go out and use the gardens because they've been designed in a way with raised beds and different features to make that interaction with nature more accessible. I do know that most of the work that's been done in Singapore has been geared toward older adults and people with dementia, but there's been a lot of interest in opening up to other groups, mental health, young adults with autism, some different populations as well. And I think it's just going to keep growing. And Parks has some really wonderful programs there. And of course, now Niana's got this therapeutic horticulture certificate going on. So every time I'm there, I meet more and more people doing some really neat stuff with nature and special populations. So there is some great stuff going on in Singapore.
Yeah, and then for Rachel's question, will this particular certificate of therapeutic horticulture course be on weekend, weekday, or is in the night time? All right, so this course is offered by 1 to 2 times a year, this therapeutic horticulture course, on weekdays only, all right, in the daytime. So do look out for the ads, or you can scan the QR code and register your interest if you are keen to join.
I noticed, if I can say one more thing, I know we're running out of time. There was a question about, is it too late to start this if you're middle-aged or retired? And absolutely not. I will tell you that the certificate program that I run in horticultural therapy at University of Florida, 60% of my students are full-time employees, they're retired, they're not college students. So a lot of people are kind of turning to this as a second career or something to do after they're retired. And in Singapore, in our courses there's a lot of different ages. So it does not matter. As long as you're still wanting to be in nature and wanting to serve people and willing to learn, then you can do it.
So one more question from Tessie. Gardening in groups or as a community or as an individual is more effective. Which one is more effective in your experience?
I think being in groups is always more effective, assuming the groups get along with each other, because you have that interaction. And the one thing I didn't make very clear is when we talked about horticultural therapy and them being individualized treatment goals and treatment plans, that doesn't mean that you're working one-on-one with somebody. They could still be working in a group setting, but Sam is working on his goal and Betty is working on her goal, but they're kind of working in the same setting. So I do think that group aspect really is important to help people feel less isolated, feel part of something together, and just have those opportunities for learning and interaction, not just from the guy, the person guiding the session, but from each other.
So due to the interest of time, I think there's one last question. Where do I progress from this certificate? Is there any joint program between University of Florida and Ngee Polytechnic? Okay.
Well, I think that's something, yeah, I mean, there are some students that have gone through the Poly certificate and then moved on to our certificate at University of Florida, which is a little more in depth. But, I think that's some things we should explore, are some other ways that, we can do some exchange programs or some co-student teaching or something like that. But I do think you would progress on to working, volunteering, creating a new program in Singapore, something like that. And actually, one of the things that we do in the certificate in Singapore is to help you write a proposal for starting up a program. So you kind of have something ready to go if you're interested in doing that.
Okay, so yeah, thanks so much. And last but not least, one person asked, Quinley asked, when is the next run? So you just scan the QR code, register your interest. Most likely it will be in June this year. Okay, although the dates haven't been confirmed. Yeah. All right. And thanks so much again, Elizabeth, for all the interesting and very meaningful work that we have been doing, and also what you share with us today. All right. We have really
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So in this case, in view of time, we are going to move on to our second speaker today. Okay. So that will be Mr. Liam, or we know him as William Leong. Mr. Liam is a mushroom grower in Singapore and Thailand. He holds a deep mushroom cultivation certificate and a medicinal mushroom cultivation certificate. He currently owns a 17,000 square feet of commercially grown mushroom farm in Phuket and has great experience in growing edible and medicinal mushrooms. Liam is also the founder of Mushroom World Academy and has been the trainer for Ngee Polytechnic's Mushroom Cultivation for City Farmers course over the last 3 years. Over to you, Liam.
Hey, hi. Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, let me share the slide. Can you all see this?
Yeah, can see, but we cannot see your face. If that's
Okay, you can't see.
Lower left corner, there's a start video.
Actually, I can see myself.
Then that's fine. It's okay. Not to worry. Oh, I can see you now. Yeah, I can see you now.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, can.
Okay. Hi, morning, everyone. In fact, today we have a 3-day session at Ngee Poly, and I'm out from the last day training for this 1 hour to do this wonderful program. And as what Jen says, we have been doing these courses for the last 3 years. And I always believe that there's always a space to grow mushroom in Singapore. All right. And I want to show you this amazing video that we have captured during our farm tour in Phuket. I hope this can be. Can you all see this video? Just in case I
can see the video, but there's no sound, is it? Or should there be sound?
I I think the sound will be fine. Without the sound, it's fine.
Okay.
But it's actually the visual. Can you look at the last part of it when she harvests the little girl, when she harvests the mushroom? Look at her face expression. You see, that is the sort of expression that we can create similarly here in Singapore as well. You know how wonderful that kind of feeling is. And can we actually grow mushroom in Singapore at home? I bet we can. And I'm going to prove to you how I did it. And I believe many more has already done so, that we can easily help to micro achieve that 2030 goals that we have in Singapore, right? If we do have enough household doing that. And why should we grow mushroom at home? Basically, we all know that it will give us the freshness and the flavor. Nothing is as fresh as growing it yourself as compared to buying over the counter. And whether does it save you money by growing your own food, especially mushroom? I would say it will cost you more, but it does give you that therapeutic experience learning journey by going through the whole success process of growing them out from it. And very most importantly, you get to have fresh live mushroom that you know it comes from your pot, right? So definitely we can do mushroom at home. And can it be sustainable? This is definitely one way to be sustainable. After coming for the course, you will know how to manage the resources that we have in Singapore to grow mushroom. And all these resources, material can be acquired free of charge. All right, we just have to point you the way how to get them. And what you are seeing here right now, that's my home. I'm staying in a HDB flat. And I so happen to have a lovely corner, no interference, no disturbance, and I'm able to grow 45 bags of mushroom kit, oyster mushroom here, that can help me to help in my mushroom supply for basically the last 1.5 years. So I've not been buying oyster mushroom for the last 1.5 years. All right, because once you tasted your own fresh mushroom, you will not want to buy anything from the counter anymore. And can it be done? As you can see from here, it's already there. All right, and there's many reasons for not doing it, definitely. But if you want to get it started, it can be done. Okay. And just to show you some statistics, the household I'm referring to is my household, and the information I collected through the year is that I'm able to produce 9 kilos of mushroom per month based on 45 bags of growing bag, which if you were to count it, is actually 45 bags here. And if you look at per year, you can easily achieve 108 kilos. That's a lot, no? And do I consume all of the mushroom that I grow at home? No, I share with the community. So that's where the part community comes in, so that our neighbors will also be motivated to grow more and to share more. So if you were to take 1,000 households from all the HDB apartments that we have, which is by tens and hundreds of thousands, you can imagine how much 1,000 households are producing in a year. 108,000 kilos. So if you add on a zero, you're talking about 1/1,000,000 ton per year. So in that sense, 2030 can be achievable if we get everyone, at least 1,000 households to start. All right. So what I'm going to show you in the next video here right now is how fast a mushroom grows. So in what the tagline here in Singapore says, that you got to grow more with less and grow faster. And it comes from us. Have a look. Can you see the video? How the one on the right, how the oyster mushroom, once they start pinning, they will grow tremendously fast in the next 3 days. And that's how fast you can harvest your mushroom in 3 days. All right. And these are the common mushroom that we are currently exposed to from the supplier: the button mushroom, the enoki, shiitake, portobello, king oyster, and any type of oysters that you find on the shelf, and the wood ear, lingzi, as well as the paddy straw. But what is most interesting is that among all the mushroom here that we see, you are able to grow 3 of them at home. All right. Why? Because the 3 type of mushroom that are selected to grow at home are tropic mushroom. They do not need temperature to make them feel good to grow well. You can just simply grow in the open environment, and with a little bit of attention and care, you can easily have your fresh straw mushroom. And I understand that to have fresh straw mushroom in Singapore mostly are in canned form. So fresh one, I don't see them actually. And this is the second crop. Usually I will grow after I finish off my first crop, which is oyster mushroom. Okay. And I believe many of us are familiar with wood ear, what we call the black fungus. That is also a very good medicinal mushroom to begin with, but it's also very tasty during especially festive season like the coming Chinese New Year. So these are some of those simple mushroom that look sophisticated and think that is difficult to grow can literally be grown at home. And I'm saying this because I've done so. No, I've to do it just to prove the concept, and it's true that we can literally grow oyster mushroom, straw mushroom, and wood ear mushroom. All right, and one of our learners so happened that his tabletop actually grows some wild mushroom. And most of the time, those mushrooms that sprouted out from those table furniture top are not edible. And you guess what? Black wood ear mushroom, which is the black fungus, actually sprouted from his table. And immediately when he posts that photo on the group chat, I advise him to harvest it fast and cook it the next moment. So who knows? Maybe the next time when you have mushroom growing around your home, there will be lion's mane popping up from the table, right? And of course, mushroom is highly nutritional. And the type of mushroom that we are talking about are mostly edible mushroom. But again, having said that, there are herbal mushrooms such as lingzi, those mushrooms that is belonging to the polypus family, Ganoderma type. But there are also edible mushroom originating as medicinal mushroom that are very good for our brain, such as lion's mane, where they can produce they can rejuvenate and boost our brain cells. Lion's mane, very hardly you can find them fresh. Most of the time will be dried, the dehydrated ones. But fortunately, with more mushroom people coming into the scene in Singapore, we are all starting to grow them now. And Mushroom Academy is one of the farm that is growing fresh lion's mane. And of course, there are other type of mushroom as well, equally beneficial, that can helps in our immune system. And there are certain mushroom that can even have the potential to mitigate cancer, you know. Those mushrooms such as lingzi, right? And definitely they have zero fats, right? So if you're worried about putting on, getting more unwanted fats and all this, you can rest assured it's zero fats, low in calorie. But having said that, although they have a lot of nutrients, but that doesn't mean that we can overconsume them, all right? And why I say so is because there's always a limit to all the good stuff. So if you are an adult and you think that certain type of mushroom is good for yourself, you can always do it moderately, but never more than 800 grams a day. But so far, I've not encountered someone who consume more than that. So it's kind of impossible, right? But if you happens to be a senior citizen or with young children, never do more than 500 grams. Simply because the mushroom fungi is a great decomposer. They do decompose materials and absorb them, and they may absorb something that may not be healthy for our system, right? So by consuming them a lot, that toxicity can accumulate into our body system that can result in vomiting, all right? To the extent that our major organ can be affected. So this information is not from me, it's from, as you can see below the slide here, from the source is from here. So I do believe on that. All right, I do believe on that simply because there are mushroom currently experimenting using it as a absorbent to clean up pollution. So they are using fungi to clean up pollution. So they have the capability to excrete certain form of enzyme to break down the contaminant so that they can absorb into the system. So if mushroom can do that, they can also absorb toxicity as well. So it's always good to cook your mushroom and not eat them raw for that sense. And in order to grow them, to grow mushroom, you need to know the overview on how the mushroom begin with, all right? So we need to know their life cycle so that we are able to grow them sustainably so that we do not have to keep on purchase and consume. And just because you want to grow the food, we have to buy more and waste more and throw more. So if you do know how to grow them from the very beginning to the end, most probably you will be able to grow sustainably. So where does their life begin in the culture world? So we will always begin with doing the tissue culture, and it's not difficult if you know how to do it. And once you have done it correctly, and of course cleanly, we will move on to propagate, so to speak, to achieve the spawn that we need to grow the mushroom subsequently. So what we call this the roots of the mushroom. We need to grow the roots of the mushroom, which is the mycelium. All right. And with this spawn grain, it will help us to inoculate the substrate that we are using to grow the mushroom eventually. So this substrate that we're talking about can be anything like sawdust, straws, to the extent that people are using paper, cardboard, which is wood-based. Yes, it's true. People actually grow mushroom from there. But bear in mind that it does have chemical or because of the print that is coming along with it. And you know what? You can even use plastic to grow mushroom. All right. During some of the fun time that I have during COVID, I do use some plastic to grow mushroom. And it does grow mushroom, but the question is, will you eat them? Is it safe to be eaten? So that has to send for the lab test, right? But I do eat them in small quantity, and that was 2 years ago. And I'm okay. I'm still here today. And once you do everything right, you will be expecting your first harvest, which will be appearing as a pinhead, what you call the primordial stage. So this is the first stage of the beginning of the fruiting body. And within the next 2 to 3 days, that is the day that you start to harvest them and start to cook them fresh. And usually oyster mushroom, which we call this the Bhutan mushroom in Thailand, is very popular for tom yum. All right. They use this very often in the dishes for tom yum, for any dish, fried egg. So it becomes a very stable diet that is on high demand always. So basically you can see here that this is the life cycle of culture mushroom from tissue right up to spawn grain into the substrate, and within when the moment is right, you'll see your first growth, and eventually the next 3 days, you got to harvest them for yourself, even share with your neighbors. And we also need to understand mushroom as a living thing, because after all, they are living organism. We need to connect with them with our 5 senses in order to pull out the message they're trying to share with us, so that we are able to grow them wonderfully, so that they can be harvested in the manner that we want them to be. So that brings us to what type of mushroom right now are we exposed to, which is the mushroom type. And the common one that we always are the one that we are commonly are eating and usually see them in the nature are those who belongs to this category. All right, who will feed on matters, organic matters that has dropped onto the ground, and when they start to decay and degenerate, that's where the mycelium comes in to start to consume the nutrients that they have released from the process. So you will notice that during a heavy shower, when you start walking into the nature, you'll notice mushrooms start to sprout all over the place, right? So they all will wait for the right time to appear in front of you. And most of the time, you'll be after a period of rain or cold weather. You won't see them growing under the hot sun, all right? And the best time to capture them is always early in the morning. That's where they will start to grow and die off the next couple of days. So oyster mushroom belongs to that category. A lot of those mushrooms that was shown just now comes from this category, all right, that will feed on decay matters, whether is it a plant or animal. So those are the nutrients that they need before they start to complete the life cycle of growing a mushroom out of it. And the second group that you will also notice what we call the zombie mushroom. You know, the parasite mushroom, they always need a host to grow from it. And one of those common mushroom, and it's also very expensive one that found in the wild, are the Cordyceps sinensis. And that sort of mushroom is always on high demand, and because of that, there's a short of supply. And being short of supply, you know, prices will goes up, and it can be sold by the thousands. So that is only found in the wild, but there are people who attempt to grow them by themselves, but I'm not sure how successful it is. But there's one type of cordyceps. It's also need an insect to grow from, which is Cordyceps militaris. But having said that, you can either use a silkworm to grow that Cordyceps militaris, or you can do a formula, all right, which you have all sort of proteins and nutrients inside, where this mushroom will also be able to grow from. And although they are grown by human and it's not as high demand or expensive as compared to the wild one, but in terms of benefit, the value is actually as good as the wild one. So why should you go and pay a few $1,000s just because it's in high demand for the same benefit as the one that you can easily buy over the counter, right? So if you do want to consume cordyceps, do your research. And if you find that militaris is good enough for you, just pay for it and no need to go for the wild one, because it's getting lesser and lesser because of the demand. And one day, I believe if we do not stop harvesting them and let them rejuvenate back, you will not see them very often for the next harvest. And finally, the last mushroom category, I would say this is a very interesting type of fungi, because they need to have a kind of relationship, a friendly relationship with plants or a tree in order to survive. and they are called a symbiotic fungi. And one of those expensive ones, which I believe some of you may have consumed it before, are the truffle. All right. And most expensive, of course, is the white truffle. And this truffle, they don't grow above the ground. They have to grow under the ground, not alone, but with trees. And black truffle, so far, can only be grown in temperate region. Commonly found places are France, Italy, and maybe some of the Eastern Europe country. And they are highly sought after and very expensive. All right. And they have that particular tree that we hardly find them in this tropic region, which is the oak tree. So this truffle will hang on to the roots of the tree, and the tree will cling on to the roots of the truffle, the mycelium, so that they will each other exchange the nutrients that they need. So as we all know, fungi do not absorb the sunlight to build their food, right? So but they still do need sunlight for food purposes. So they need to depend on the tree to do the part of the work. But the plants also do know that mycelium roots can reach far and wide, and there are certain point in time the roots may not have access to certain nutrients that the oak tree may require a lot. So they are dependent on the fungi, the mycelium, to provide them that source as well. So on that regard, they come together symbiotically to achieve that mycorrhizal association. So this is a very wonderful relationship that I felt is amazing. All right. So truffle is one of those fungi, but there are always others like lettuce, porcini. They are also under this symbiotic relationship with a certain type of plants and shrubs. And here is one of the experiments I did to pull out the visual, actual visual of what a symbiotic relationship looks like. You can notice that there's this plant roots that is more brownish color that is overlapped by a very white layer of cell, and this is actually mycelium. All right, so this is how symbiotic is connected. The mycelium on shielding the roots of the plants or injecting themselves into the roots of the plants. There are two types of symbiotic action here. One is shielding and one is the injection. So you can see that this is how they exchange the nutrients as they live their life. All right, so this is an actual visual test case of the demonstration of symbiotic relationship. And what are the key factors that we have to provide for a successful mushroom cultivation? I'm going to show you a video here, which is our farm in Phuket that is growing oyster mushroom. And the environment that we have created for this abundance of harvest is the control environment. Only then beautiful mushroom will fulfill your needs for harvest. So this is very important. You need to give them the right condition, which is a temperature. You need to give them the right RH, which is a humidity, because they don't need water per se, but they need the moisture. Because they are not plants, they don't drink, they just absorb the moisture in the air. Because mushroom doesn't have skin, they are very naked, and if you bury them with water, they will drown, they will rot. So they only need moisture. And you also need to make sure you give them enough oxygen. So again, mushroom breathe like us, they need oxygen. They do not need, they release carbon dioxide. So CO2 management is very important. And do they need lights? Yes, they do need lights, but they don't need sunlight. So an amount of lights is required for certain species of mushroom. So if you're to grow your mushroom openly, you don't bother about lights. You just play along with the nature. 12 hours days, 12 hours nights is good enough. So on your right, we are actually doing medicinal mushroom, which is Ganoderma lucidum reishi. And this is how big they can grow if you fulfill all the conditions mentioned here. All right, so has been shown here. It can even grow as big as a piece of face, literally cover our face. So this is how, if you seriously want to go into commercial farming, fulfilling the growing condition for the mushroom is tremendously important. All right. And I'm also going to share with you the 2 types of mushroom that I mentioned just now that can be grown in Singapore. And this is what I did. I did my first crop by growing oyster mushroom. And instead of throwing the waste away, I rejuvenate them, repurpose them to grow a second crop. And this time I decided to do a paddy straw mushroom. Okay. And this is how a fresh paddy straw mushroom looks like, using whatever resources existingly I have. It can be as huge as a quail egg, or even bigger. All right. And the other one on the right is actually the wood ear. So these are the other 2 mushrooms you can consider after learning how to grow them properly at home. You can start off with oyster, we move on to paddy straw, and eventually you can do a wood ear, so literally you can have 3 types of species growing at home.
You want to use this?
So to get started, of course, you need to get your skill development. You need to learn how to do it properly so that you don't get yourself confused.
So now it's on.
And being with Ngee Ann Poly for the last 3 years, we have been consistently training a lot of mushroom lover. And eventually, in fact, the numbers are picking up that there are actual people growing at home. And there are even one that are going into business, which is great for the industry because we do need more attention that there's such a mushroom existing in our country that can be an industry that can create job opportunity. Okay. So this is another part where fungi can play a complementary role together, supporting the vegetable space as well. So the coming course you can consider will be, of course, next month. All right. And then every month, most of the time we have it every month, but let's go for the February one. And go into mushroom, Ngee Ann Poly, the mushroom cultivation. You Google, you get all this information there and then. And you can indicate your interest or even immediately register for the course. And of course, when you attend the course, you will be able to acquire all this knowledge to begin your learning journey. Okay, where to get your supplies, how to choose the mushroom species to grow, how to prepare the substrate, how do you perform inoculation, and what are the conditions you need to create in order to have proper footing, and how you're going to harvest them, and what are the some common challenges and problems you face if you go in the open environment. So all this will be inside the training. And if you want more information, please access that website, you have all the information required before you decide whether to come for the class next month or not. All right. So and if you are ready, you can always email to Sumita. Okay, I'm Jayan. I'm all done with my presentation. If there's any questions, I will be love to answer to it.
Thank you so much, Liam, for sharing all these very delicious pictures. All right, and also taking time off from your training today.
Good.
There are a few questions. Let me read out to you. Just a while. Huh? Okay. So first one is, can the growth medium be something else other than the ones that we see in the picture because they find it a bit too bulky, maybe for their home cultivation?
Okay, if I get the question right, so is there any, can we not grow in the bag? Can we grow in some other form? Is that the questions? My understanding of questions. Okay, you can grow in other form, right? You can grow in another form. You can grow in a food grade container. That's what I did also. You can grow in your drink container. You can grow in your mason jar. You can grow in any form that you are comfortable with and you have abundance. So instead of throwing away, you can even grow in a bucket. You know, bucket, a pail. So it's up to a matter of choice. You can do that. All right, you can do that.
Okay. Next one is, what's roughly the total time for each life cycle from you putting in the spawn to its sprout?
From the preparation to the actual fruiting, you have to give about 30 days. For oyster mushroom, about 30 days. All right, from the actual spawning of the substrate, you give it about 30 days. But that also depending on the biomass of the mass of your substrate. So you are talking about a mass of 800 grams. It takes you about 30 days to be ready. But if you are talking about half the size, then most probably it will not be 30 days. You'll be half of the time. So depending on the size of that substrate you are using, the material that you're using. But in all standard, it's about 30 days.
How many harvests can there be after this 30 days?
For oyster, every 7-10 days, you will have one harvest. And then you will last you for 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
And then the total harvest weightage will be 400 grams. So that is your advocacy. So for a bag of 800 grams of mushroom sawdust, you can do about 7 to 8 times within a period of 2 months, and one harvest, and the total harvest of these 7 and 8 times is equivalent to 400 grams. So you just multiply by the number of bags that you need to grow that amount of mushroom.
Okay. All right. And then I have one more question from Hang. There's a lot of white fungus around the bottom of the mushroom in the picture you saw just now. You showed just now. So how do we know whether it is safe for consumption or whether it is some of the contaminant?
Okay. It is safe. It is definitely safe because you know that is a species you are growing, which is the paddy straw mushroom. Unless there are spores that happens to land onto the substrate because it's an open environment. And most of the time, the chances those spores will not survive. Mycelium, once they colonize that surface area, they are very well insulated. And if it does happen, you will know that is not the type of mushroom you are growing. Okay, so that paddy straw mushroom is the real actual edible mushroom that you literally plant them. You can't go wrong, right? So not to worry. But most of the time that our wild mushroom that landed in our potted plants are usually the yellow one, the yellow little fungi that was sprouted out. And then the other one will be the ink cap, which is the one that is dark in color, which look like an ink. And oyster mushroom from time to time. But again, if you are not familiar with all those mushrooms, generally you just remove it and throw it away. You don't go and meddle and try to do something with it. There's no point, right?
We have this question from Brenda. How about dark location? How about the location? Does it require to be dark and windy when you grow them at home environment? Because if you grow them at
Another
balcony,
very good.
there'll be sunlight and stuff.
Okay. All these are very valid and good questions. There's always a myth that mushroom must grow in the dark. If your mushroom grow in the dark, we won't see them in the day, right? What you need to avoid is direct sunlight. What you need to avoid is strong wind because it causes wind burn. What you need to avoid is place whereby there's no fresh air exchange. So and of course not tremendous heat where you increase temperature so high that the mushroom will dehydrate and it doesn't grow at all. So all these you need to avoid. So regards to lights, if you grow outdoor, don't worry too much about the lights. Let nature take care by itself. 12-hour day, 12-hour night is good enough. And you are growing a Hardy Brothers. Oyster mushroom is the most easiest mushroom to grow. So that is a foundation mushroom to begin with. So if you can manage them, the rest of the mushroom will not be an issue, right?
Brenda, I also have another question. If in styrofoam, if growing mushroom is styrofoam, do we need to cover it and spray with water often?
Yeah. And Brenda, right? I think she may have some experience. So the styrofoam bag has its advantage. The advantage is that when you close them up, you help to maintain the moisture level so that it doesn't dry up tremendously. But having said that, if you close them up, you need to consider regularly remove the opening to have a fresh air exchange because too much CO2 inside is not healthy, right? So again, come for the class because why? For such a short time, I can't go much into detail. But on the overview, there are more to discuss. But generally, this is how it works. If you talk about foam box, right?
Okay. I see from Siu Cheng, I see a lot of mushrooms sprouting outside after heavy rain. How do I know whether these mushrooms are edible or they are poisonous?
Honestly, I do not know myself because I'm not expert. But one thing for sure, don't do anything with them. First, we are not allowed. Second, don't take your chances. So what do I say? Don't touch them. So that will be the best choice. Even though you are very sure that can be edible, but don't take your chances because we won't know. So I can't really pinpoint which is edible or not because I'm not trained. I'm not a forager. Right?
Okay. So just now I think we cover spores. What other precautions to take when growing mushrooms in at home?
Okay. Apart from the spores, there isn't much. Of course, you attract some pests like just like plants, you will have pests because it's open environment. So it's pretty okay because that demonstrates that your growing technique is pesticide free. There's no pesticide added into it, right? But it's part of nature, so you just have to be prepared for that.
Okay. So one question from Oilian. Mushroom don't photosynthesis. So it takes oxygen throughout the growth cycle, correct?
Fruitings, yes, but not before that. Fruiting, yes. When they start to fruit, they need oxygen. But before that, they need occasionally exchange of fresh air. They do not really need to breathe oxygen in that sense.
Okay, George, I have a question on the course fee. So it's stated in the screen there that the course fee for Singapore citizen age 40 and above is $106.68, and you can pay with SkillsFuture credit as well. So this is up to 90% subsidy. by Singapore Skills Future. All right. If you are sponsored by SME, you can also enjoy 90% subsidy. Okay. So let me see if there's any more questions. Will spores and growth medium be given during the classes, and how will the class be conducted?
The class will come with understanding talk, so that we all can synchronize the mushroom language, so that we will not be lost along the way. So there will be a theory, and then most of the time it will be hands-on. And I bet you, the only time after the class you will not do anything with it is because you do not want to grow mushroom anymore. Otherwise, the equipment and the tools and the material you bring home are fully comprehensive. You can kickstart your journey immediately on the 4th day. There will not be any gap in between that you will be lacking for preventing you from pursuing the next step. So rest assured, you will be all provided. All right, you'll be all provided.
Okay. So Brent, I have one question. Some use board cardboard, egg trays as substrates. Are they safe? Is it a must to buy the seedling?
Jenny, can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Okay. There are some people who use board cupboard and egg trays as substrate.
Okay.
Is it safe using those substrates?
If it's an organic material, I think it's okay. But if you're talking about cardboard, most probably it's a commercial one with already some kind of print on it. Safe or not, I can't say until you do a check on the mushroom itself. But you do really grow mushroom, and then if you are taking them on small quantity, most probably it's harmless. All right, harmless. Because I did that with plastic, the food grade plastic. I use that to grow mushroom, and I consume the mushroom. But if I'm going to do it long term, I think I need to go and find out whether is it safe. But since I'm doing one off, then I didn't really establish that. So I can't say whether is it safe or not. But the advice is, if you're not sure, then don't do it. That is absolutely safe. All right. Not sure, then don't do it. Then it's definitely safe.
Right. And then is it a must to keep buying the seedling to grow new batch of mushroom?
You know why you all should come to Ngee Ann Poly training? Because my mission to everybody is that you have to grow sustainably. Means that you minimize spending, and yet you still can grow your own food. So at the end of the whole 3-day session, my encouragement to everybody is don't buy anything unless you need to. So spawn grain, if you know how to do it, why should you buy? It's because you are not trained now, that's why you think of buying. But once you are trained, you will not think of buying anymore because you know how to do it, right? So rest assured, minimum cost for future growing, right? If you really want to do that, continue with this journey, you will know what I mean later on. Right?
Anyone else have any question?
Or is there a reason to start from tissue culture scale? So go, there's one.
Okay.
Okay, is there a reason to start from tissue cultures? Well, you can do some hack. In the class, we're going to teach you some hack where you can skip certain steps because you are not growing commercially. So you can do things like this. So definitely you don't need to start from tissue culture. You can literally grow mushroom from mushroom. Or some use boy or tray and all this, okay? Are there any grown mushrooms sold in the market now? Jenny, you want me to answer some of those questions?
Yeah, if you see any that I have not asked.
Yes. There's someone here,
yeah, George, right? George.
Yeah, any of your grown.
Yeah, so the 106 is already after subsidy. The original cost fee is 900 plus. Okay, so after 90% subsidy, that will be $106.68 that you can pay in cash or by SkillsFuture credit.
I do remember this is a fun course. Nothing, no need to be very serious. Just chill and then enjoy yourself, learn the whole skill set. And from there, you will definitely feel happier in growing them. And after that, you won't be alone because we'll still be around to guide you thereafter to problem solve any issue. Because at the end, we want more mushroom grower. Because only then we will see the industry develop. All right. What is the consumption limit per day? Can it be consumed daily? Who can't consume product? Okay. So from Keeman, right? If you're talking about herbal mushroom like Lingzi, people with who are under the anti-suppression immunity medication, they are not advised to take Lingzi. And of course, ladies who are conceiving also don't do that. Otherwise, you can do it based on the guide. As long as you don't overdo it, everything should be all right. And this is a health supplement. It's not really a medical product that claim to that can cure certain disease. Although some testimonial are there, but again, there's no science behind it at this moment of time. All right, but people will know whether is it or not, is it beneficial or not. They will know. I myself believe in it because I need the Lingzi for the energy for the work in the farm. So Lingzi give me the energy that I need to perform in the farm and to sleep well as well to detox well. So I benefited from that. And then maybe the rest may not be the same because everyone are different. Some says that they took Lingzi and cannot sleep because they become too energetic. So then most probably they have taken it in the night. That's why they can't fall asleep. Oh, see you in February class, Raymond Tiong. All right, see you, Raymond. Okay, any other questions?
We have 5 more
George.
minutes.
Okay.
Any more
George,
questions?
okay, thanks, George. So I hope to see you guys in February. And then we're going to have some cultivation fun and enjoy ourselves. Oh, Chin Heng Wei, yes. Okay, while we are waiting for time, let me share with you what happened in this class. This class, very exciting. One thing best about every class is that they ask questions because it's only then everyone benefit, inclusive of the trainer, myself. Because every question that is asked, I learn new things. So it doesn't mean that we have learned enough. No such thing, lifelong learning. So we constantly exchange information, we ask questions, and there's no stupid questions. Why? Because there's always some good things out of it, right? One thing for sure, how do I know plastic can grow mushroom? It's not from me, it's from my student from Israel. He told me, have you used plastic to grow mushroom? It caught me by surprise. Then during COVID, while we are all very quiet, I recall what he told me and I went and find out myself. And it does grow mushroom. The next question, of course, it is safe to eat. That had to be fine to justify, but it definitely can grow mushroom.
All right. So yeah, the time is almost up. I would like to thank Mr. Liam very, very much. All right, for taking time and share his experience and expertise with us. Okay. So thank
Thanks,
you, Liam.
Janan. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Just for everyone's information, besides the 2 courses we mentioned earlier in therapeutic horticulture and also in mushroom cultivation for city farmers, we also offer many courses under food processing and technology, pharmaceutical manufacturing, quality assurance, quality control, environmental services, urban farming and solutions, and last but not least, in this afternoon, you will learn more about pet care and veterinary practices. Okay, so if you would like to be the first who know when the next course is running, to register your interest with us. You can take a screenshot of this for your future reference. Okay, so now I'll move on to our next topic. Okay, so the next topic is titled Indoor Gardening, the importance of lighting to keep your plants happy. Okay, so it's by, the speaker will be Mr. Saifu. He is a senior lecturer in Ngee Ann Polytechnic and has extensive expertise in plant pathology, plant propagation, green roof, lightning protection for trees, and trees preservation. He has been the trainer for Ngee Ann Polytechnic's Sustainable Indoor Gardening course over the last 4 years. Saifu, I'll now pass the screen over to you.
Thank you, Yan. Let me see whether I can see. You can see my screen. Oh, where's my screen?
If you have video, do share the sound as well, computer sound.
Yeah, okay. Oh. Wait, okay. Where is my... Okay, there you go. Oopsie. Okay. All right, my screen's in.
Yep, can see that and can hear you.
Can you see? Okay, all right. Can hear me? Okay.
But I cannot see
start?
you in person.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wait. Let me my video. Okay, now you can
Okay,
see.
great. Yes.
Wait. Okay. Can. All right. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Yep. Thank you for coming in the morning of Saturday, and I'm sure you have a lot of other things to do, but thank you for joining us. And I hope at the end of this session, there's something that you learn about lighting and plants. The first talk was about therapeutic horticulture, and then we went to mushroom. So now we go back to plants, and especially so indoor plants. Okay, and why I choose lighting, because I think a lot of us over the course of the COVID, we actually a lot of us sort of grew to like plants because we cannot go out, and so we stay indoor and looking around. There's not enough. There's nothing or not many things to look at. We start buying plants or start looking at our plants and fuss over them because we got so much time. So over the course of the COVID, I think there's a lot of people who started gardening, especially indoor gardening. And when the new plants, the new hybrids came into the market, the variegated plants, especially some of them very expensive ones, that really caused the interest in plants to boom. And I believe it's still there, but probably the interest has died down a bit because people are now able to go out and travel. Perhaps people traveling, then they probably would buy more plants and bring them home. So hopefully the interest in looking after plants, especially house plant or indoor plants, is still there. And connecting that to what Singapore is doing and becoming city in nature, I think with the 1 million trees that we planted, we probably ran out of space already outside. So we need to bring in more plants inside our house or even in the corridor. So I believe if everybody takes up the indoor gardening or house plant garden, then we will probably achieve the greening effect that we want, not only outside but also inside our house. Okay, so without further ado, my focus is more on the lighting and indoor plants or house plants. Okay, I think we all over the course of the COVID are all expert in watering, fertilizing, pruning, managing pests and diseases, among other things, trying to induce our plants to grow better and all that, or training our plants. So, but I think a lot of us do still have question about lights, and similarly for me also, I'm still playing around with plants in my house, and playing with how and trying out and how they work around different intensity of light. So I believe that lighting is one of the challenge that we indoor plant parents, we call it house plant parents that they call it now, it remain a challenge for us. So hopefully at the end of this talk, that some of your answers might be answered. Some of your question might be answered, and you can then look after your plants better. Okay, so wait, go. Where is my? How come I cannot move to my next? Okay, so when we talk about lighting and plants, the question that I always get from either even my students or families or even myself, how bright is it this spot? Would it be able to, can I place my plants here, or it should be better someplace else? Or why is my plant not doing well here? Is it because there's not enough light, or is it too much light? So when our plants don't grow well, when we tried everything else, fertilizing, watering, and all that, we know that maybe it could be the light, or and why is it not growing well there, or why is my plant dying even though there's enough light? I think so. Those are some of the questions that we will ask, or when we are faced with a plant that is not doing well. Hey, I paid a lot for this plant and it's not doing well. When I see it at the nursery and it's doing so well, why is it not doing in my place? Okay. Now, what we should ask, the question that we should ask is, what kind of light can my plant receive from this spot? So it goes back to us finding out what type of, or what is the type of light or the intensity of light that we can identify from where we want to place our plant. So that's what we should find out. So this talk would hopefully help you to understand and finding out what kind of light you have in any spot in your house or even your balcony. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, right? So before we start, let's look at sunlight itself. Okay, and sunlight, the white light that we see is actually made up of the colors of the rainbow. So our eyes can only see the white light, but the three major colors of the rainbow is red, blue, and green. Okay, and if you're wondering why we always see green, the leaves are green because plants don't absorb green light, so they reflect them, and so we see them, a lot of them, as green. Leaves of plants don't normally appear blue or red or any other color because they absorb those parts, especially the red and the blue light of the part of the sunlight. So that's the basis of what we're going to look at, that human and plants don't perceive light similarly. So we see at the visible part of the spectrum, light spectrum, but the plants and the leaf focus on the red and the blue light, right? So that's the basic idea that we want to look at when we are looking at it. Okay, so let's look at how when we look at the sunlight, we normally look at the solar spectrum. Okay, and if you look at it, this is the wavelength with various wavelength and intensity. Okay, if you look at where our eyes can see is the visible light. So what we see is the visible light part of the solar spectrum or the sunlight. Now, and if you look further, the plants are more into the blue and the red light. Okay, so that's why we cannot identify what is best for our plants, because what we see differently, the plants lit differently, but what we see is only the visible light. We cannot see the blue and the red light, which is more important for the plants. Okay, so the blue and the red lights are the part of the visible spectrum of the light that we cannot see, but the plants can sense and they use it. Okay, and so we talk about that. So bear in mind that our eyes cannot perceive what our plants like. So that's why we might be off in terms of understanding what our plants need. So and also because our eyes cannot see the red and the blue light. Okay. So when we talk about solar, or we talk about sunlight or solar energy, we talk about and we connect them to the plants, we cannot run away from photosynthesis. Okay, so plants use light energy into chemical energy. Okay, using carbon dioxide and water. So the energy is used for them to grow, to reproduce, to produce flowers, produce fruit, and to grow bigger. And that's the basis. And they don't take all the spectrum or the wavelength, like I mentioned before. They only take the red and the blue. The blue light that the plants take, which is good for vegetative growth. Okay, that's the blue light, and to grow bigger. So the basic function. And then the red light is more to encourage flowering, budding, and fruiting. So these are the two at least separate function, but together the red and the blue light actually work together to cause the growth of the plant. But they share slightly different function in terms of what each can do to the plant itself. But the plants need both the blue and the red light to generally grow bigger, to flower and to fruit. Okay, so that's the basic idea that we should understand in terms of the light itself. Okay, now before we continue, you probably have noticed some problem with your plants at home before. The effect of light on plants. Let's look at that and look at some of why those problems occur. Lack of sufficient light is one of the problem with houseplants. And when we look at the different plants reaction, you probably would have seen your plants over time, the leaf turning pale green or turn yellow or turn white, and then die or drop off. You might even see plants like what you see here in the diagram back here. It's very laggy, and you can see that it's tilting towards what is very bright area. So it becomes laggy because there is not enough light, not enough blue light in the sense. So it is actually moving towards the light that is, or growing towards the light, the bright light. So over time, it stretches itself, the stem itself. How it stretches the stem is by increasing the nodes, the growth of the nodes. You know that stem has nodes and internodes. So if you see a leggy plant, the nodes are far and in between. Example, like the jade plant here, you can see that it's very leggy. If you look at the a normal jade plant that has a lot more light, the leaves are very close together. Okay, so you can see that in terms of insufficient of light, especially blue light, your plants tend to be laggy, and then over time the leaves become smaller. They might drop the leaves and things like that. So in general, over time, normally you see it over time. It's not a sudden reaction. The plant will still, the plant will still grow, but you will see that it's not growing well. Okay, and if you continue to have insufficient light, your plant will probably slowly die, even though you are giving them enough water, fertilizer, give them other tender, loving care. But the light at this point in time is what we call the limiting factor. And when it's limited, that's where over time the growth will be affected, and sometimes your plant will die. Okay. Similarly, for a variegated plants, when there is not enough light, the variegated plants, which is now where I hope it's still the rage now, the variegated plants, all the expensive variegated plants, the Monstera, Thai Constellation, and all that. When they don't have enough light, they probably can revert to being solid green. And the Monstera that you pay a lot of money for, and now it become just a normal Monstera because it's not enough. Okay, so we need to understand that. Okay, and the other thing that we want to also understand is that the lack of another lack of light is when your plants fail to flower and fruit, or your plants, the buds of the flower drop, or even when it flowers, it doesn't fruit. And that's an indication that the plant needs is not enough in red light. So that's another thing that we want to look at. So especially when you have flowering plants on a bright spot of your balcony or your house, it flowers but it doesn't open, or it flowers and it drops quickly, or it flowers but it doesn't fruit. So that's an indication of insufficient red light. Okay. Now, what about too much light? When you have too much light, to a certain extent, you have a bushier and compact plant, and larger, darker green leaves. But if you have far too much of light, then you probably see a scorched leaf or bleached leaf, or even brown and darkened leaf, and then the leaves will die. Either it die hanging on the stem or will drop off depending on the plant itself. So you can see that these are some of the, I'm sure you have seen some of this on your plants, but in general, when they're not happy with the light, they just don't grow well. They just don't grow well to make you happy. They have small leaf, the color is dull and all that, so you know that that's probably a problem with the light itself. Okay, so something that I'm sure you have seen it, you have encountered, especially for those who have lots of plants and who are trying out different plants. This might happen or may have happened to you before. Okay. Now, so when we talk about light, then we need to go back, or we need to look at exposure to light. And when we talk about exposure to light, we look at the window, our house window. Where is the direction of our window? Where is it facing? And that will affect the intensity of the sunlight that the plant receives. So if you look at the picture here, there's a very big open area, and lots of lights coming in, and you can see that some lights, there are more light in certain parts of the room, and there are lesser light. As you go further into the room, you probably have lesser light, but you can see that in general it's very bright because the window is very big. So light comes in. So the potential to grow a lot of house plants is there. But go back to the fact that windows and balconies are the one that would give you the light. So let's look at, first of all, where are the most intense light, or the most light that you get is probably at the southern facing window. Okay, if you have southern facing window, you probably get the most light, because you get a light anything from 6 to maybe even more hours a day of light. And then when you have a window or a balcony that is and west facing, you probably have lesser intensity of light as compared to the south facing window. And if you have a north facing window, then that is the least amount of light that you get. Okay, so that's something that you need to know. So a good in your handphone, you probably have your north south that can indicate where they are. You can identify that. Okay. Apart from that, the southern exposure is probably the warmest part. Okay, and the northern is probably the coolest part. So you can look at it, and then later we can look at how we connect all this to the plants that we want to grow. Okay, other factors that might affect the light is actually, if you have curtains, depending on whether you have heavy curtains, whether you have light curtain, colored surfaces, whether your tiles is dark colored or is more lighted color that will reflect or absorb light when it goes into the room itself. So those are some of the factors that you need to consider also. Okay, so that's exposure to light and the direction of the window itself. Okay, now just to also orientate you that it's important that we must understand that the sunlight that we receive, or the sunlight that your window receive or your balcony receive, changes every day from 8 a.m. to in the evening. There is the change in direction and intensity, and also over the months. Okay, so because Earth is tilted, so because of that, the sun rays coming into your window or your balcony also changes. Okay, for example, in my house, I get a lot of sun in the first half of the year, and the second half of the year, like now, I get a lot more sun. It comes through into my living room. But after June and July, I can see that I have lesser amount of light. So because the fact that our Earth is tilted at its axis, so you get a bit more different of light. So, and because of that, your plants might also grow different, might change in its growth over the period of 1 year, or even its reaction over a period of a day. So do remember that the sunlight intensity and also direction changes over the period of a year. Okay, more so in the temperate itself, but for us, that you will see the difference. Okay, so a lot of things that affect the light that is used by our plants. Okay, now how do I check whether the light is enough or not? The simplest way to look at it is to check whether you're just using your hands, and if you look at it, you look at the picture, you roughly know what is bright light and what is low light by looking at the shadow that that the sun or that the filtered sun do to your hand. So you look at the shadow itself. So this is a very simple way to look whether the area that you're looking at is having bright light or low light. So you can try that out later on when you want to see out. Okay, so that's one way. But when we talk about looking at light intensity, we need to understand what is it. Light intensity is about the amount of light that hits the plant over a period of time. So that's light intensity. So, and this light is the one that is important or is responsible to drive photosynthesis. Okay, And if you look at it, these are what we call measurement of intensity. Okay, you can measure them in foot candles, lux, or in PAR, which is the photosynthetic active radiation. So these are the different measurements that you can that indicate whether the light is of low intensity or very high intensity. So we will talk about this later, but that's how we can measure intensity apart from using the shadow that is created by your hand by through the light effect itself. Okay, so we will talk about that a bit more, but do remember that we can measure light intensity, and there are instruments that can measure. Okay? Now let's jump into how we want to identify light intensity, and how much light you can get. Okay, let's look at first direct sun. Okay, direct sun is definitely at area 1, where you have the window there. Okay, and normally area 1 will get at least 4 hours or more direct sunlight, and that will be the most intense that the plant receive, and they will definitely be suitable for plants that really need direct sunlight. For example, hibiscus, you probably can get hibiscus there, somewhere there at area 1 to grow and to flower. Another example is coleus, crotons, and definitely cacti and succulents are the best place for it. Okay, but do remember they have very intense light, and that's might cause problem for a lot of our house plants we will discuss later. So this is area 1, closest to the window, and especially if the light comes through directly into the window. Okay, so that's your direct light. Now let's look at the second one, which is area 2, usually very near to the window, may receive some direct sunlight, but it is a bit far away, and compared to area 1, it's not as intense. Okay, but it is still warm inside, and plants can dry out. So very important to understand that. So this is normally near the windows, or you can also get this area under when the window is unshaded east or west facing window. So you can get that. So that's another way. So you can see that it's just moving further inwards into the room, where you get still highlight, but not as intense as number 1, right? So, and let's look at the plants that you want to look at, that you may want to grow in that condition. Definitely one of the most important or most common plants that you can grow with highlight, which is area number 2, are your herbs. Okay, and apart from that, orchids will do well, and definitely some of the caladium and things like that. Citrus will also do well here. Okay, so these are what we call highlight plants that needs quite intense light, but not direct light. Okay, so example of it. Now let's look at then what we call the medium light itself. Okay, which is area number 3, that is now further away into the room itself, and this is where area we have what we call a moderate light intensity, still very close to the window, but do not receive any direct sunlight anymore. What you get is more the filtered one. Okay, and you would get this from north facing windows. Okay, and normally unshaded. So that's another area that you want to consider, normally at the corner. And what are the type of plants that we can grow here? We can look at this area is where all the house plant that we are crazy about will thrive. Okay, that area number 3. So whatever house plants that you're interested, especially the aeroids, will do well at area 3 itself. And if you look at all this, the list of plants, this is what we call the who's and who's of house plants or indoor plants. Anything that is considered indoor plants can be grown at area 3. Okay, your begonias, your your epicenias. These are colorful plants that you can grow, especially the aeroids, the ficus. These are areas that definitely that you want to grow all in general, all the house plants that you want to try. Okay, so that's another one. Okay, and before I continue, do remember that although the lights are sort of fixed in a way, remember that a lot of our plants have a range of lighting needs. Okay, so for example, some of them can go into high light and then to medium light. Some of them can go to direct and then to medium light. So we need to know what are those plants itself. And one way to find out is to try them out. Okay, and by looking at the reaction, you would know whether that's suitable or not. So remember that a lot of plants have a range of lighting needs. They have a range. They don't have a fixed one, but they have a range. So some of them have a longer range, some of them has a shorter range. So again, it's very difficult to actually tell you, okay, these are the range you need to try it out, because every location is slightly different. Okay, but the medium light on area 3 is where a lot of the house plants will thrive. Right? Now, last but not least is what we call the low light. Okay, let me just move myself out. So that's the light that you see is the least intense, and there's very little natural light. 1, 2, and 3, you still get natural light, but your area 4, you probably won't get any natural light itself. Okay, far from the window, and normally very shaded area. And this is where, if you talk about tropical plants, this is where the understory plants will thrive. If you've been to a forest before, a lot of, not only there are tall plants that try to reach out to the sun, there are a lot of what we call shaded plants that are still growing, but they receive very little natural light. And in the tropics, we call them understory plants. And they thrive, they grow, they flower, they fruit. And this is where you probably get where you can actually add in some plants which can tolerate very low light. And what are the plants that we talk about? So these are the low light plants, and I'm sure you have known the peace lily is one such plant that can grow in low light. And some of the aglaonema and the dumpkin, some of the aeroids might also work here, but we need to try out again. Okay, so the ZZ plant or the Xenicaucus also is another one that will probably be well, and some of the ferns might also grow well in low light situation. Okay, and another common one that we always see are actually the snake plant or the sansevieria. I think now they've changed the name already. So a lot of choices, even though it's low light. There's a lot of choices, because we always remember low light doesn't mean there's no light, it's just that there is no natural light. They'll probably have a lot of reflected light somewhere in the room that gives them enough to actually grow. Now, one of the ways to see whether your plants are growing or accepting the growing area is when you see that they are the new leaf are growing regularly, and they are very shiny. Even the newly formed leaf tend to be shiny. Even the older leaves tend to be on the shinier part. Then you know that is growing well. And for the peace lily, you know that they will when they flower. Okay, when they flower, you would know that they are doing well. Okay, so these are some of the areas that we talk about, the 4 areas in a typical in a typical room with a window or with a balcony. And the bigger the space for light to come in, I guess that you definitely get a variety of light intensity and a variety of plants that you can grow. The smaller the window that you have to get sunlight, the narrower the intensity that you get, and perhaps your choice of growing some plants could be a bit lower because you don't have a range of light intensity. Okay, so the basic idea of doing so. Okay, so when we talk about being successful, let me check the timing. So when you talk about the lighting, is I remember that in being successful in growing plant, we need to understand that first your plant need a proper growth environment, and the growth environment is made up of several factors, okay, that must be present for good growth of plant. We also must understand that the different stages of the plant life need perhaps slightly different growth environment. For example, when a young plant as compared to a mature plant, a plant that is flowering as compared to a plant that is not flowering. So, but what's important that we must understand that the growth environment is made up of several factors, and if one factor is of lacking or is insufficient, then we call that one factor is the limiting factor to good plant growth. And in our case, as we have discussed before, this is light itself. Okay, so light in we looking at the plant itself becomes a limiting factor. And even though we give the plant other good maintenance practices, like we make sure that it is watered properly, fertilized, and prune off the dead branch, the dead parts, and all that, light might not be sufficient, and that light becomes a limiting factor, we call it. Okay, if you join our class, sustainable indoor gardening, we will talk about a lot more about other factors, including light itself. Okay, so that's the light itself. Remember that any factor that is insufficient for the plant becomes the limiting factor that will then affect the growth of the plant. Okay, so when we talk about light itself, and sometimes it's not sufficient, then there is a possibility of using artificial light. Okay, artificial light or growth light is now available for indoor plant itself. IKEA even sells indoor or growth light. Okay, and they are available in different types for us to give sufficient light for the plants. And most of these growth light are actually lights that produce the red and the blue lights. Okay, so and that will depending on what you want to grow. So you will either choose the more towards the red or the blue, or a mixture of red and blue to come into that. So we need to know what we are growing and what are the some of the lights, the artificial lights or the growth lights that are actually produced by this artificial or the growth light itself. And the growth light is now being used in a lot of urban farming itself. But the fact that we are now paying a lot for indoor plants, especially the expensive one, we would want them to grow well. And definitely, if there's not enough light, if we couldn't find a spot that our expensive Monstera Thai constellation is growing, or one of our philodendron that is expensive and not growing well, we would want to consider artificial light, and that would help the plant to grow better. So when we talk about growth light itself, you can see that it's just these are only some of the type that is available in the market that would allow plants to grow. But like I said, these lights are not the same as the fluorescent lights or the bulb lights that although they are possible, but they don't give you the right kind of light that the plants need, that we mentioned before, the red and the blue. Okay, so definitely something that you can consider if you think that your lights or the lighting in your balcony or in your living room is not good enough to grow certain plants, right? And just to bring you further, we can actually buy an instrument which is a PAR meter. Now, this PAR meter is actually would measure the red and the blue wavelength, and so you would know whether in an area or even the growth light that you buy has enough red and blue wavelength that would allow you to that would give you the opportunity to grow different type of plant. So this particular meter is available that you can try out. Some of you might want to ask whether the Lux machine is possible. The Lux machine, the Lux meter is actually used for measuring more for human consumption rather than the plant itself. The Lux machine for camera or for even to identify whether there's enough light for a person to work in the office itself. So there's a Lux meter, but this meter will measure the photosynthetic light that should be available for the plant itself. Okay, so available that you can actually buy. I've checked Lazada, Shopee, or sell. If you want to really be scientific about it, okay. If not, what we have discussed over just now would be sufficient to allow you to grow as much as you can of plant. Okay. I think I shall not bore you with some of the terms, but back to the PAR, these are terms that would actually measure the amount of red and blue light available for the plant that will indicate whether a particular area is sufficient to grow certain type of plants, whether it's the high direct sunlight or the low light plants, which we have mentioned before. Okay, so that's something that if you buy that meter, you can actually really measure and be scientific about it. Okay, so I sort of finished, or rather there's a teaser for this particular workshop that we have in Ngee Ann. Okay, it's called Sustainable Indoor Gardening, and the topics that we will cover that would help you in achieving not only an indoor garden, but most important, as we move towards sustainability, we want to actually teach you and show you how you can have an indoor garden and a sustainable one as it is. So these are some of the topics that we will cover in the workshop itself. Okay, so let's see whether I have any others. So yeah, that's about what is there for me about, and if there's a teaser, and if you want to know more about lighting, do join us, and we will definitely cover a bit more about and a lot of other things. All right. So with that, I end my talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Saiful, for sharing with us your experience in dealing with plants and giving them the perfect lighting condition. Can you share the next slide so that they can
Oh,
see
okay. Yeah, I will.
uh,
Yep. All right.
more
So,
information about the cost?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Meanwhile,
there's,
there are some
yeah.
questions that they ask, which I will read out to you.
Okay.
Question
Okay.
from Weng is how to create or get more red light. If, for example, you don't get it enough, or the plants will get.
So I guess, yeah, it's I guess on your own is, or rather, naturally you won't be able to get red light if your room or your balcony is in a certain direction. So like I mentioned before, you probably need to get a growth light to get a growth light that would actually give you more red light or more blue light. So there are growth light that are on the market that actually tells you whether or they can be adjusted to give you more red light or blue light. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, because if you want to try to convert the natural light to red light, that's impossible. Okay, so that's I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Okay, it's from Wong again. If I'm interested to grow a bonsai and my balcony only have strong access to strong sunlight in the morning, there is strong light in the afternoon, and at the other side of my house. Do I move the plant with the light? Meaning that do they need to move it like morning facing this side, afternoon this side, or what are your growing tips?
Okay, I think for bonsai itself, you probably would the bonsai will be happy with your morning sun. As long as your morning sun, you get at least 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours, that would probably be enough for your bonsai, but your bonsai will be a bit more slow growing. So that's my take. It's sort of like a bit a chore to move your plants, unless you can somehow put it in a situation or in a location where it gets both the morning and also a bit of the afternoon. So somewhere in your house that would get that, then you would probably be better off, because I think bonsai, you need the maximum is good for bonsai, but if you get morning sun and you get 4 or 5 hours, I think that should be quite all right, although the growth will be slower. Okay, hope that answers your question.
Thank you. With that answer, so the next question is: will artificial lighting create too much heat for the plant? Because the person, I think Kiman live at non-aircon environment, and that's without much ventilation.
Okay. One thing about heat is that you also, depending on how close or how near your plant is to the growth light. Okay, the closer it is, the more intense it becomes. So you need to adjust. And also talking about ventilation, the ventilation helps in reducing the heat. So you need perhaps put a fan to move the warm air a bit, so that you can actually reduce the heat. But what I think most important is to vary the distance between the growth light and your plant itself, and probably follow the instruction of what in the growth light is that they give you. Yeah. So I think that's about probably how you want to reduce the heat. So you can adjust until your plant, let's say now it is causing burn, you probably need to push it further away from the leaf, the nearest leaf, so that the burn is lessened, and until you don't have any scorched leaf. Then probably that's where it will get okay. Hope that answers your question. Yeah.
One more question, probably less directly linked to lighting, but on something else. Thanks for a useful session. How do we get rid of pests, especially aphids?
Okay, come join our workshop. Yeah, aphids is always sucking insect is always an indication that your plants are not doing well. Okay, it's not growing well. It's weakened, and that's where the aphids will come, and they're the most difficult to get rid because it's not the aphids, it's actually the growing condition of your plant, or the growing environment of your plant, and that affects the health of your plant, that attracts the aphids. So if you can actually improve the growing condition, which will then improve the health, the amount of aphids will be lesser. And if you get rid of them once or twice, they probably won't come again. So that's important to understand that a lot of pests and diseases come first because the growing condition is not fully good for the plant in general. But having said that, there are plants or some plants are host to certain pests and diseases. So no matter what you do, they will come. But if your plant is healthy, the impact is not as hard because your plant can handle the infection itself. Okay, and if you really want to learn more, join our workshop. Right, hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Saiful. One question from me. Because I grow some plants at home as well, and after some time, I find that the plant surface seems to have a layer of dust. And when I just spray water, it doesn't go off easily. So is there a way to clean off the dust? And because I believe that affects the sun, the amount of sunlight that can reach.
Especially if it's become thicker over time. So what we do, we have some really what do you call it, gardeners or indoor gardeners or parents of plants that are really into it. They can actually buy, the cloth and actually use it, wet it, moist it, and then actually rub off all the dust on individual leaf itself. Although spraying works, but what I do for myself is that when it rains, I bring them outside. So that would help to reduce the dust. Otherwise, the dust will keep on coming. So you need to actually wipe it off. So that's one way. Another way is actually, that's the best way. Some people actually use rubbing alcohol, but that's a bit too strong unless you have pests and diseases. The way that you're doing is fine, but you need to actually use a soft cloth to actually remove the dust itself. And if it's raining like nowadays it rain, you put it outside, which is I normally do. So I do the lazy way. I put it outside. Yeah.
Is there any detergent required?
No, you don't need detergent. But if you want to use detergent, if you can't remove it, a very small amount of detergent, 1 drop into 1 liter, using the detergent that is mineral detergent. If you check some dishwashing detergent which is mineral, you can use that. But just a drop, maybe a liter of water, very very diluted, that would help to remove the stubborn dust that is still there.
Okay. One question. What edibles can I grow indoors? Am I able to germinate anything except green beans?
What edibles can grow indoor? I was just we were talking about herbs, right? I think a lot of herbs can be grown, but if you're at area 3, which I mentioned just now, you can actually grow a lot of herbs. And having said that, if you're growing microgreens also, you probably can try that out also. I think it's I suppose a very important thing that we should all know, that we should all experiment. We should experiment and try out, because every location is slightly different. So you experiment and try out and see what works and what doesn't work. And so far there is no textbook to tell you, okay, this is what it is. You need to try out given even you have a slightly better understanding of the lighting, then you can try out. Yeah. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who, if you go to their house and they're doing no well because they experiment, I move them around. If they don't go well, I move them another location. If they don't move, I move another location until I find a suitable location for my plant. That's my advice, which is I'm still doing it and trying out. Yeah.
Thank you. That's not I thought of. I saw one more question. Okay. I think Wong have one. Sorry, Kiman have one question. How to get rid of larvae or prevent its development from indoor plants?
Larvae as in is that mosquito larvae or the larvae of, is that a caterpillar or would that
I think general. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, mosquito larvae.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we follow NEA standard. You remove every few days, remove your tray. I mean, if your plant has a tray, every time you water and the tray has water, definitely the chances of larvae coming in is quite high. So what I normally do is after every watering, I would actually either throw, or I actually water the extra water on the tray on other plants. So I actually make sure that there is no stagnant water. Yeah, so that's I normally do. But sometimes, no matter how you do, they'll still come. So we need to check. I try to check as often as I can. That there is no stagnant water. But yes, when you're growing indoor plants, you definitely have to have your tray, your watering tray. Yeah. So make sure that is removed. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, probably there are some chemicals that you put some chemicals that can put into
you
the
can.
tray. Pesticides.
That one, you can buy the mosquito Aedes tablets that will kill the larvae. You can go to the nursery. They do sell that. You can just say that you can buy that in the nursery, and you can tell them that, hey, I need these tablets to kill the larvae or mosquito. They will give you. But like I said, if you're thinking of if you normally the water is not so much, so you can actually try to remove it rather than putting the tablet. Other than that's my take lah. I normally don't use the tablet. I will throw the water, try to remove the water. I know we all be busy, but we try as much as we can.
Okay, so then due to interest of time, maybe one last question. What soil mixes are introduced in the class? Are they defined for soil suitable for vegetables, fruits, or trees?
We will cover a range of potting media, we call it. And in the class, we will introduce the participants with a non-soil potting media. That means we don't use soil. So when we don't use soil, we don't attract pests and diseases as much, because a lot of the media or the components of the media we use are almost sterile. And so you can, and we will teach you how to mix them to use on different types of plants and herbs that you want to grow. So do join us, and then you probably get some information on that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Last but not least, I would like to address one question regarding this. Just one. The course itself.
Okay.
Right. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah.
So so for this particular course, yes, if you join the course, it will cover on pests, also soil mix, and other aspects, including water, air circulation, so on and so forth. All right. And for the course fee, is payable with Skills Future credit, and Singaporeans aged 50 and above can receive 50% subsidy on the course fee. Okay, but at the moment we have already completed the run for up to the March 2024. So
March,
the
yeah.
subsequent run will be from April or May onwards. So if you are interested, do scan this QR code and then just indicate your interest, and then we'll send you our news letter when this course is running to alert you to sign up. Okay. All right. So this course, it may be conducted on weekday. All right. Yeah, most of the time. So yeah, so that was one of the questions as well. Okay. And last but not least, I would like to thank Mr. Saiful for sharing his insights and expertise on indoor gardening. Thank you very much, Saiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hope to see you in the workshop. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on, we have one last speaker for this morning. That will be Mr. So Eng Lam. All right, Mr. So is a landscape architect with postgraduate qualifications in environmental science and business management. He specializes in horticulture, arboriculture, landscape management, and design. He is also the program manager for the specialist diploma in Agri-technology and Agri-business. I will now pass the screen time to Mr. So.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Nice to see
Morning,
everybody
morning.
here. Okay, let me just share screen. And can you all see? You all see full screen?
Yeah, no, now we see presenter view.
Okay. Let me just again. Let me bring up the a second. Okay,
Yep.
how's it now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay, morning, everybody. Nice to see everyone here. I hope you had a good breakfast with all the presentation. I hope it'll be good for every one of you. Okay, let me just begin. My topic today actually is on what is agri-technology, but obviously that also has relevance to our food resilience in Singapore. As Singapore progress, right? Yeah, we need to make sure that we have a constant supply of food. That's why I think it's important for us to relate food production with agri-technology. Okay, that's me. That's my name. Okay, let's begin. Okay, according to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, right, and the World Health Organization, countries and cities worldwide actually they are facing this constant issue, right? Critical challenges with food production and food security. Firstly, caused by surface water pollution through conventional farming, and also mismanagement of fertilizer resources, and then scarcity of potable and irrigation water supply, brought mostly about by this climate change, right? I think it's a big issue now for us, this issue of climate change, and affect our food production as well. And with the recent pandemic, right, the COVID-19 pandemic, it has actually furthered the situation, right, by causing food disruption, right, with the supply chain, logistics, etc. Because many countries actually impose restriction on transportation and border closure to actually stop this spread of COVID-19 as best as we can. And that actually changed the global food market by affecting food prices significantly. So you realize that during a pandemic, a lot of food are in short supply because they can't import or export. So that's where the problem starts, right? Because in Singapore, we are, in a sense, we have majority of our food imported from overseas. So if the border closes and we cannot import, that's a big issue for us. So that brings me to this food supply situation in Singapore. As I mentioned earlier on that food security is important for Singapore because of the supply because of the limitation of our land, right? So with such a high percentage of import from abroad, right, food safety becomes a very important issue, right? And it's a worry for Singapore since the food can be contaminated anywhere along the production and supply chain, right? So therefore, reducing Singapore's heavy reliance on overseas imports, the challenges in ensuring steady supply and prices set by the food product producers, disruption in the supply chain, understanding any shift in the global and food supply that will adversely affect Singapore is of paramount importance. As I mentioned in these slides, if you realize that actually we import over 90% of our food from overseas, and these are some of the countries that actually we imported the food from. So if and Singapore by itself, our local farm only produces only a small amount of food, about 8 to 10% for local consumption. So you realize that we are heavy dependence on foreign imports. So in this case, right, because our dependence on the foreign imports and we want to be as resilient as possible, we have to strengthen our food security and ensure that the secure food supply of safe food for everybody, right? So Singapore is again working towards growing our 3 baskets, as you can see, especially the 30-30 vision, which I think many of us really understood based on the publicity by the ministries, the local news, etc. So whereby development of our own local agricultural sector becomes the key driver for this, right? We wanted to produce 30% of our food consumption locally, and also it helps our local industries to flourish as well. So I just wanted to share with everybody a short video on this thing called green economy. Well, early on, my colleagues, I think they have talked about growing plants, etc. So that is also part of the green economy that we're trying to cultivate, right? Let me just share with everybody this video. Hopefully it plays.
Is it supposed to have sound or no sound?
Yeah, got sound.
Then you probably, when you share, you need to share with sound, include computer sound. Lower left-hand corner. Maybe unshare and share again.
Okay. Sorry. Then share again, right?
The lower left corner, there's include
yeah,
computer
sound. I know. Okay. Let me just redo this again.
Mm.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
The future of our world depends on addressing global challenges now. We need to create sustainable livelihoods, feed a growing population, and safeguard the environment. We need to make the global economy green. Farmers are key to the green economy. They grow the crops to feed, clothe, and produce other renewables for all of us. They manage the land, safeguard natural resources, and help protect biodiversity. Around the world, agriculture accounts for 37% of employment, 34% of land use, 70% of water use, and up to 30% of greenhouse gas emissions.
Oops, sorry.
The future of our world depends on addressing global challenges now. We need to create sustainable livelihoods, feed a growing population, and safeguard the environment. We need to make the global economy green. Farmers are key to the green economy. They grow the crops to feed, clothe, and produce other renewables for all of us. They manage the land, safeguard natural resources, and help protect biodiversity. Around the world, agriculture accounts for 37% of employment, 34% of land use, 70% of water use, and up to 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, 97% of agriculture workers live in developing countries where it is women farmers who grow the majority of our food. Growth from agriculture is at least twice as effective in reducing poverty than any other sector, and it has one of the highest potentials for mitigating carbon emissions. We need 70% more food available by 2050. We must increase productivity and reduce waste. We must help farmers share knowledge and access the training and inputs they need to sustainably improve the quantity, quality, and diversity of the crops they grow. And we must help them adapt to changing weather patterns to keep soil fertile and to tackle pests. Farmers also need better access to markets to get supplies and information and to sell their surplus crops more reliably and affordably, further reducing waste. These include local storage, communications, and transport systems. This increases the money they earn and creates more jobs. Farmers can use this to reinvest in their farms and pay for better education and healthcare for their families. When existing farms are more productive, natural habitats and the biodiversities they support can remain intact, and forests can continue to capture carbon and reduce overall emissions related to climate change. Sustainable farming practices like conservation tillage also help prevent soil degradation and keep carbon in the soil. And technologies such as drip irrigation can reduce the amount of water farmers need to use. Agriculture is essential to the green economy. Let's reverse the big decline in government spending and foreign aid to agriculture that has been happening since the 1980s. Let's invest in agriculture research and create science-based policies that give farmers a variety of innovative solutions from which to choose. Let's enhance agriculture's ability to create jobs and safeguard the environment. Over the next 40 years, we need to provide food, water, jobs, housing, education, and energy for an extra 158,000 people every day. Let's support sustainable agriculture for a green economy by putting farming first.
Right, so everybody enjoys that short video. So perhaps we can talk a little bit about video. So from the video itself, we understand that actually the green economy is actually about living, working, as well as pursuing growth or taking care of our environment and using the limited resources available as efficiently and sustainably as possible. So then in this case, right, how does agri-technology play a part in this green economy then? Right, so just a definition, agri-technology is the production of food using advanced technology such as Internet of Things, data analytics, and robotics. Singapore's agri-tech sector mainly comprises of agri-tech or aqua-tech farms, and then alternative protein production. So these tech-enabled farms, right, use technology to increase yield and efficiency. They leverage data, automation technologies, and artificial intelligence or AI to maintain vital parameters actually on the 24/7 basis, collecting real-time data on feeding habits, on plant health and water condition to monitor the growth of the produce and optimize environmental conditions to minimize production disruptions. So on the alternative protein production front, these alternative proteins is about sourcing alternative to meat protein, such as insect or plant-based protein, and also to a large extent, lab-grown meat. So the agri-tech sector in Singapore currently is relatively new. This is infancy stage. And job roles actually can cut across the whole value chain, from agri input stage to production, to processing, and ultimately, right, to go to market. I will talk more about the specific job roles in the later slides. So the importance of agri-technology, right, as you saw from the video and what we read from the newspaper, journals, etc., we know that modern agriculture, especially in Singapore, faces challenges such as population growth, climate change, and resource constraint. Especially in Singapore, we don't have a large piece of land, right? So being efficient and using technology in growing our food produce is of paramount importance. So Agritech then in this case play a crucial role in addressing these challenges by offering solutions that in the end will improve yield, reduce environmental impact, and optimize resource utilization. It actually transformed the traditional agriculture into a more sustainable and resilient industry. So the benefits includes real-time data on crop status, weather forecasts, environmental challenges, is effective maintenance of soil health by decreasing the use of pesticides, increase crop production and productivity, reduce cost of material and resources, and decreasing dependence on agricultural weather condition. This is important because we can actually grow plants in indoor so that we are not affected by the weather. Increase importance of genetic potential of produced crops, because then we can crossbreed a lot of species. And then the component of some of this agri-technology that we employ in growing plants or even grow food, fish, for example, we can actually use technologies like GPS or GIS, auto steering system. We can even use drones, remote sensing, and we basically wanted to collect data and to analyze this data so that we can improve the yield, reduce all the impacts that it causes, etc. So you realize that agri-technology is getting a lot more importance where growing our food is concerned. So what's the future of urban farming then? Right, sustainable farming. Actually, to all that's important, right? The keyword obviously is open innovation, right? Gathering technologies and ideas with industrial fields and scientific research field. It actually invents a new value, right? So a lot of research is going into this, how to make the plants grow better, less sustainable to disease. For fish, for example, or the meat industry, for example, they are trying to find or invent new ways to produce meat, right? So the rapid improvement of agricultural productivity and the promotion of agricultural industry is an important paramount area that we are trying to address in this thing called open innovation. Enhancing technology for development for farmers and the industry, and supporting the agricultural, food and health industry, right? And then obviously that will also create business and expansion of related industries in this agricultural area. So how do we enhance or harness these technologies for growing plants, for example, and later growing fish or even food crops, right? So you can see in this picture, we don't really need land nowadays. In Singapore especially, we can grow plants in indoor environment, right? Areas that we can control, or the term that we call control environment agriculture, right? So we can actually use lights, you can control the lighting, we can control the temperature, we can control the humidity, we can even control how much of carbon dioxide is needed by the plants, and then obviously wind speed. All this, right? If you do it in the normal, conventional way or traditional way, you have to have a farm in the outdoors, for example, and you are actually affected by all these factors, right? So that's what we call advanced plant cultivation experiment system. So we also can plant areas like greenhouses, and a lot of times these greenhouses are also used for research purposes to actually look at new species, to create hybrid species, to actually control some of this growth and monitor some of this growth of plants, so that when we actually mass produce it, they will be grown in the best optimum condition. So all this while, agri-technology has helped us in developing stable year-round vegetable production and also energy efficient, because some of these indoor growing of plants, for example, actually they uses renewable energy. We don't really have to depend on so much on fossil fuels to create energies for lighting, etc. All these things can be actually more efficient in terms of if you apply technology in the growing of plants. And then advanced cultivation environment management system, where we can actually monitor, right, every single crop that we actually put into the growth system, right? Energy, for example, energy efficient heat pump technology, which allows the year-round production of vegetable, right? And using information on fruit enlargement processes to help manage greenhouse melon cultivation, for example. So these are live examples that how we use technology in growing plants, using light sensors to control the supply of nutrient solution through hydroponically grown tomatoes, and then develop more new varieties, for example, strawberry, through process of tailored to its special characteristic. So you realize that if we are able to harness technology, actually is a very efficient way of growing plants. We'll own to our own limitation where land is concerned. And obviously, if we can control some of these agricultural produce, research can be conducted regarding its quality, regarding development of more agricultural products. Take, for example, non-destructive strawberry quality testing, right? You can see how this strawberries susceptible to, for example, squeezing, etc. And then greenhouse melon storage experiment, we can see how to expand the shell life of all these vegetables, fruits, which are perishable in nature. And then analyzing and quality evaluation of vegetable functional components and the aroma. We can even increase or know or analyze how to increase the quality of this the benefits of these vegetables that we consume. And also in terms of pest management, right? This area called integrated pest management, we can develop this technology to analyze and to prevent all these crop diseases and pests much easier, right? Rather than in a traditional way, really there's limited control over what Mother Nature has for the growers or the farmers. So we can do disease protection experiment on hydroponically grown butterhead lettuce, for example, integrated pest management of melon thrips, make use of LED lights and the thrip natural enemies as well. And then perform long-term research and survey on ecological and efficient fertilizer method, right? And how to enhance the soil fertility. So these are what technology can help us, right, in making sure that we cultivate sustainably. So these are some real examples of how this technology has been utilized in the industry, in the farming industry. For example, farmers are using smart farm management system, where they can use a handphone, for example, to monitor plant growth, right? So whatever plants that you grow in the field, whether it's in the indoor environment or even in the traditional field, with the use of technology, you can actually monitor a lot of parameters and to enhance and to give you that instant feedback on what to do if something happens with the farm and how the condition of the plants are growing. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier on, we don't really have to grow plants outdoor or even fishes, food fish in the sea nowadays. We can actually do it indoor. For example, for plants, we need sunlight, but in replacement of sunlight, we can actually use these LED growth lights, where it supplies the essential wavelength of lights that the plants require for growth. All can be done indoor. But obviously, that also incurred energy costs. That's why there's a reason why a lot of these LED lights are efficient and also doesn't use too much of energy. And also a drone technology. I think this area of using drones in agriculture is picking up, not just also in agriculture, in many areas as well for surveillance. And also some of these, if you see on the right, that drone itself actually carries ability to carry fertilizer, ability to carry pesticide. So if you are still using traditional kind of a vegetable, growing a vegetable in the field, you can actually reduce manpower by tapping on some of these drones, for example, to actually sort of like do spraying of pesticide, to apply fertilizer, etc. So I want to show you a video of how also that affects logistics, how we package. We don't really have to depend too much on manpower going forward. As you know, Singapore, we are also reliant on manpower now. So we want to reduce this by using robotics, automation technology. So you can see, right, even sorting of a vegetable and packaging them automatically is the driver going forward to enhance productivity, right? The robots is designed to sort out according to size, according to how sweet this produce is, and then pack them accordingly to the parameters that is set by the grower or by the farmers themselves. So a lot of time these are done automated, right? Minimum human intervention. So in a way, also it's good because you reduce contamination. Also, you reduce the time taken, right, to supply to the market. So I've talked so much on cultivating plants or vegetable for consumption. What about food? Right, we know that, I mean, we cannot keep consuming just vegetable because there's only fiber. We also need proteins and all that. So in this area of food fish cultivation or even crustacean, there's also a lot of investment, a lot of interest, and a lot of research going to this area. So through areas like growth serum, you don't really have to grow a fish purely from its birth, right? Naturally, you can actually cultivate it, the cell, and then produce a lab-grown food source for consumption. Right? We can immortalize the cell lines. We can use cell culture media. We can increase the cell numbers and then make 3D structure from cell and then create that cell-based seafood. So even for seafood, you really don't really have to farm it in that sense anymore. You can produce them all in the lab. Yeah, so this area of cell culture can be even more versatile than traditional fish. Right, you can produce sashimis, you can have hybrid plants and cell-based seafood. You can have fillets and steak, and also some of this pet food that we can produce in the lab as well. So you realize that a lot of technologies are going into this area of producing food, whether it's vegetables for consumption, fruits for consumption, or even food fish, or even meat. Right, I'm sure everybody heard about, I've tasted the thing called Impossible Burger. That's basically plant-based protein. Yeah, so again, here is a fish that's better for us, it's better for our ocean. So by using technology or growing food fish in an indoor environment, for example, you can reduce 95% of carbon dioxide emission from live seafood transport, where you can up to 60% lower the CO2 emission than purely traditional aquaculture, right? That means you grow it in the kelongs, you grow it in the ocean, for example. Right? Production can also be 100% powered by renewable energy. Right, that's important. And then allow wild fishery on the brim to recover and thrive. I think you have read news recently or even in the past that I think the recent news that I heard was about the because Chinese New Year now, you know, the traditional fish that we are eating, our neighboring countries are getting lesser and lesser supply because of over farming perhaps, and then due to sea temperature rises and all that. A lot of these fish, right, naturally they are actually declining because they can't survive in the environment, right? So going forward, this is going to be a lot more difficult for us to farm wild fish from the sea. So going into indoor farming, for example, going into lab-based cultivation of food is important. And then obviously localized climate resilient seafood production, because then we can produce food that we wanted, economically viable, and it's tasty for consumption. Because in the sea, when you throw the net itself, you are fishing out whatever that's in the sea, and some of this fishes or the organism that gets trapped in the net may not be suitable for consumption, and a lot of them, but because of overfishing, in the end they will die, and then they'll go into the numbers will start to dwindle right in the wild. So these are some examples of how, besides the agricultural part, growing of plants, we can actually grow fish or our food source, food crops in controlled environment as well, right? In an indoor environment, you don't really have to have a big piece of agricultural land, in this case for vegetable, or big open sea for us to actually farm, because as you know, sea can be contaminated as well. So we want to ensure that the quality of the produce is up to our expectation. So growing indoor, we can control all the parameters again. It ensures good production. Yeah, so in this area of food production itself, we also understand that, as I mentioned earlier on, humans can't survive only on plants alone. We need proteins as well. So that comes with the arising this area of technology that we call aquaponics, like trying to grow fish, food, fish, and vegetable together in a system. So together with my students, we are looking into creating systems that we can actually harness the food, fish, and the vegetables together and grow them in one system. These are some examples that we are experimenting, that we have experimented on creating a single closed loop system. And these are some examples also that we put it to test on the system on how we can grow vegetables, etc., in a controlled environment again, right? Using lights, using different type of growth beds. So in a sense, aquaponics is the ability to grow the whole value chain of food, whether it's vegetable and fish food, together in a system, right? Because then that becomes you don't have to separately grow vegetable on its own or grow food, fish on its own, right? Trying to make them come together. And the good thing is that the fish, the waste from the fish itself go towards feeding the vegetable that you're growing, right? Through the action of the bacteria in the water, in the fish, for example, in the tank, the bacteria will convert all this nitrite into nitrate, which is usable by the plants for their own nutrients. And then the nutrients are taken up by the plants. The water is released back into the fish tank, right? So the cycle itself is a closed loop, right? If you understand in that perspective. So nothing is wasted. Yeah, and then also we also trying to develop efficient food protein formulation for the fish, right? To ensure that the quality of the fish that is produced has a good protein requirement, right? And then obviously we need to control the water, right? Cycling the system, controlling the water quality that is the fish requires, and then coming out with a nutrient solution for the plants to grow initially, right, before they are placed into the system. And then using low-cost nitrification technology for recirculating aquaculture system, or we call RAS. That means it has to do with a lot of the enhancing the bacteria in the water, so that they are efficient in converting all this waste into the nutrients that the plants need, and vice versa for the plants to use that, and then release the clean water back to the fish for their survival. And then also nowadays we are using nanotechnology to create more carbon dioxide, or carbon dioxide, dissolved oxygen in the water, so that the fish can be more healthier, right, and more efficient. And also IoT systems or sensors to monitor the growth and rates, etc. So you can see using agri-technology or using technology in agriculture is the way forward for us, right? In the long run. So these are some of the examples of fresh fish, food fish species that we have tried, and the vegetable species that we have tried in the aquaponics system. Some are a lot more efficient, some are a lot more successful than others. So it's still the area of aquaponics is still in the area of discovery, We are trying to find what's the best way to mix the vegetable with the growing vegetable together with some of these fish species. But the results, I must say, is quite encouraging. For example, the growth of tilapias, the growth of jade perch, I think, and crayfish, for example, with some of these leafy vegetable, the brassica families, like the lettuce, like the chisim and all that. These are quite efficient at this moment. We are trying to see whether we can tweak it further or not. And many companies are also doing that area of research, right? Not just the institution like ours. So what does the use of this technology mean, right, for us in Singapore, right? So the one area that we are or the government or for us is to look into transforming the local agri-food industry into one that is highly productive, resource efficient, as well as sustainable, right? We don't want it to be short term. We want it to be a long term kind of effort, so that we can actually ensure that Singapore is self-sustaining in time to come. And then the demand for skilled workforce in the area of agri-technology and agribusiness is set to increase. So if you realize that all this technology I talk about, IoT system, sensors, even LED lighting, or even some of these cell culture-based kind of food production, all these require skilled workforce, right? People who understand technology and be able to make business out of this technology, right? So this area is set to increase as time goes by. And Singapore is heading towards that direction. So that's the reason why, right? SFA, the Singapore Food Agency, has done a manpower and training need and survey in 2018. Right, the survey result actually shows that 74% of the manpower needed in 2022 alone. Right, remember this conducted in 2018. There's a projection to 2022. Right, for the sector, right, for the agri-tech sector, it's projected to be skilled workers, right, with specific competencies such as plant growth, farm technology and management, as well as agri-business acumen to work in the high-tech farms. So we are talking about creating high-tech farms now, not just the traditional farm where you see them employing manpower workers to do all the manual work, for example. And then the projected expansion of this skill force, right, workforce, will create 658 new jobs in 2022, and it has done that. And the manpower needs is projected to increase to 4,700 by 2030. So you see, if any one of you who are really interested in going this, using agri-technology in farming or going into urban farming, I think this is a good time to consider. So the scan, right, this scan of a survey revealed that there's an increasing demand, right, for agri-tech and agribusiness related jobs since 2018, with 175 openings in Singapore for 2020 alone. So the number now has increased a lot more, right? So as I mentioned, it's a good industry to go in if you have that technology, you're armed with the technology. Actually, that is a very, and there are a lot of people who wants to go into urban farming now because of the use of technology. No longer do we have to depend so much on manpower, in this case, foreign manpower as well in Singapore. Yeah, so this is a pictorial illustration of what's the manpower demand projection for the agri-food cluster by the year 2030. Right, so high-tech farms require multidisciplinary skills and competency, such as agri or aqua sciences, engineering, and infocom technology. So these are some of the projected sort of professions that hopefully, right, when people go into this industry, they can take on some of these job roles. And then, as I mentioned, going forward itself, this agri-technology is important to us, right, both in farming, both in creating systems using remote sensing control softwares like the software that allow us to monitor the growth rate, IoT to actually monitor or collect data, mechanization, automation, as well as robotics. I show in one of the videos about packing all these tomatoes, right? So you realize that by 2030 itself, right, 70% of jobs will be for skilled workers and above. Right, so this area of agri-technology is really the key driver in time to come. which is in alignment with the green economy that Singapore is trying to focus on in time to come. So that's the reason why in Ngee Ann Polytechnic, I developed a specialist diploma in collaboration or in a partnership with Republic Poly, right? So this specialist diploma, we call it the Agri-technology, Agribusiness Specialist Diploma, is proposed to cater to both fresh diploma graduates as well as mid-career professionals keen to upgrade their skills and switch careers. And then the objective again is to develop competent skill manpower in support of the management of the agricultural industry and to provide our graduates, right, with the knowledge and skill needed for a career in agricultural related industry and businesses. And this, the special thing about this unique selling point of this diploma is a joint offer with us between Ngee Ann Poly and Republic Poly. So you realize that as an institute of higher learning itself, right, we are also doing our part, equipping our fellow Singaporeans with skill or upskill to enter this industry in the area of using agri-technology. Yeah, so this is the link that you can use to apply for the upcoming course intake in April. Yeah, so the deadline for application for the April intake is 15 February. Right, so you can consider. Right, so what do we teach students in relation to agri-technology? Preparing our workforce for this area of agri-technology, we actually came out with 2 post-diploma certificate as part of the specialist diploma. You spend the first semester understanding agricultural biology, plant production principle and technologies involved in creating in growing plants, and also smart farming technology as well. And then in the second semester, if you go on this course, you can actually do agricultural analytics and productivity, right? You use technology to monitor, collect data, analyze data. And then for participants or students who are interested in creating businesses out of the technology that they have acquired, they can actually, they will have to understand agribusinesses and financial management. They will have to take this particular module to enhance their knowledge, and also agricultural supply chain and management. We know that going from the farm to the market itself, there's a whole string of understanding that we need to acquire. Know how to bring in logistics, how to set all this, the produce after you harvest it already. How do you keep it? How do you do post-harvest management, etc.? So these are all part of the specialist diploma that we try to educate our students, and then eventually they go into that using the agri-technology that they have learned, go into the industry. So this specialty also has relevance support from the Singapore Food Agency and also the Singapore Agro-Food Enterprise Federation Limited. And a lot of the companies that you see here, they are in the agri-tech area. They are also looking into supporting the program. And a lot of the students also in the end get employment by some of these companies. Yeah, again, as I mentioned, this is a joint award by Ngee Ann Poly and Republic Poly. So by the end of the 1-year program, you will get a certificate. You'll get a diploma if you pass the entire 2 semesters. You'll get a diploma awarded by MP and RP. Yeah, so the uniqueness again of this specialist diploma is that actually it is co-developed by both the lecturers from RP and MP as well. So all the module structure, the content, assessment, most are the same, right? Regardless of which poly you enroll yourself in. Yeah, so you can realize that all these modules that I mentioned, the agri-biology, plant production principle, technology, smart farming technology, agricultural analytics, productivity, agribusiness, financial management, and even supply chain are taught by different experts in the different schools in the institution. So for example, in Ngee Ann Polytechnic, the science part, right? The life science part is taught by our school, the life science school. And then for smart farming technology is taught by lecturers from the School of Engineering. And then the analytics part, right, using softwares and all that to collect data. These are done by our colleagues from the School of Infocom Technology, or ICT, we call it. And then for business, right, understanding businesses, how to create business, how to use, understand financial management, supply chain management. These are done by colleagues from lecturers from the business school. So this basically, when students come in, actually they actually have the best of many worlds, because all these lecturers have their own expert areas and they contribute to this particular specialist diploma. And we created it because of this interdisciplinary requirement of our agricultural industry. Yeah, so as I mentioned, right, this is the sample certificate that you will receive if you successfully pass the 2 semesters, which is 1-year program. So on top of this, right, we also understand that some people may not be fully wanting to go into the agri-tech industry or agriculture industry. So I also has this course that we call Urban Landscape Management for Facility Managers. It's a 2-day short course whereby we teach the participant how to manage plants, how to grow plants, how to maintain them, etc. So if you're interested, the next one will be likely in June. So look out for the advertisement. Yeah, so this will be conducted by me. I came up with the program, and then also it's a collaboration between us and National Parks Board, because for those who has already prior certification, like Certified Horticulturist certification or Arbori certification, they actually can get their continuous educational unit after attending the class. Yeah, so these are some of the course outline. What do you learn? Landscape contract, you learn plant health, diagnostic and treatment, operation, use of landscape irrigation system, etc. So you see, if you are interested in the agri-tech per se, all right, you can actually take the specialist diploma, which is a 1-year program. But if you just want to understand the general kind of how to manage your plants, not just indoor plants, but in the outdoors, you can consider thinking of some of these short courses that we offer. Yeah, so the application for the specialist diploma is now open, closing on February 15. Yeah, so the class was commenced on 15 April 2024. So if you want, you can actually consider joining us. So that's all I have on a short brief on what agri-technology is and how the polytechnics we are trying to build up the manpower force, the manpower requirements for the industry. So that's all for me.
Thank you so much, Eliam, for sharing your insight.
I'm happy to take questions. Yeah, no problem.
On this industry.
I'm happy to take questions. Yeah.
All right. So there's a question in the chat. Is there a statistics of employment rate for the past runs of this SDAA program?
Good question.
The alumni or participants.
Yeah, good question. So we are quite selective in admitting the student right in the beginning. So those students that came in already have certain qualification, right? For example, some of them are already engineers, or they have a diploma or degree in areas of relevance, engineering, infocom, sciences, etc. So we want to ensure that every student that come into the program can succeed in the program. So in terms of employment, I would say 100% of our students, even before they finish the course, they are already employed by some of those companies that I mentioned in the slide, right? So in terms of employment, there shouldn't be any issue. A lot of students are in here also taking the course also for really have the strong urge, strong interest. And obviously, some of them, they wanted to create their own agribusiness. They wanted to set up farms. In the past, the first one, we had 2 doctors, who came in with the intention of pivoting into becoming urban farmers. So they are trying to learn technologies to even pivot into from their own profession into doing urban farming using the technology to help them. So we have lawyers also who join us. They also wanted to do the same thing. So you can see that the profile of the students are varied, and a lot of them actually already know what they wanted to do. And we are also actively helping students who are fresh graduates to also go into the industry. They want to with this program called Work Study Program that is, in a sense, encouraged by the government. Some of those students who doesn't want to go to universities, for example, immediately, they can actually be placed in a company. So they'll work for the company in the Agritech area, and then eventually they finish the specialist diploma. They can either progress with the company, or they can actually set their own business as well, or progress into universities, for example. So it's a very varied, and I can say that the job prospect is very good at the moment for people who want to go into this area of agriculture. Yep.
Thank you, Eng Lam. How about someone who don't have a diploma or a degree, but if they have certain working experience?
Okay, we do give a discretionary admission depending on the qualification and also the experience that these candidates have. For example, if you have been working in a farm, a traditional farm, for example, you have the relevant understanding of, for example, the biology part of it, then depending on the requirement at the time, depending on the candidates that we have, the numbers that we have, because we have to also control the class size, for example, so we can't admit everybody. So my encouragement to everybody is, if you're really interested, please apply, because you won't know what is the outcome of this, right? Even if you think that you don't have the necessary qualification, if you have the interest, apply, and then we'll take it from there, right? So it's on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
Thank you. We have one question from Keeman. How to stay competitive in the local market when the investment costs are very high for new farmers? Selling price of local produce is at least 2 times of foreign imports to cover the cost.
Yes. So the issue why the government set this condition by 2030, right? We need to produce 30% of this locally sufficient, right? To be self-sufficient. They don't set 100% because we know that importing will always be lower cost compared to local produce, right? In terms of the quality itself, obviously, perhaps some of those foreign imports may have a higher quality because they are bigger companies, they have a bigger kind of coverage. So we know, I think the government also knows that it's impossible for us to compete in terms of price, in terms of land mass, etc., right? So there's always an issue. But that's the reason why we said, right? But in time to come, if we have enough muscle, if obviously there's a lot of investment coming into the farm, they see that the farms are efficient in using technology to produce quality produce, for example, which are comparable to what the foreign imports already has, then obviously the price will go down as more companies go into this area. Obviously, more companies wanting to do it, more investors will come because they see the value in this. So eventually, it will come to a stage whereby it should bring down the cost of production, cost of even transportation, supply chain, etc., etc. That's what we foresee. But obviously, at this moment in time, Kitong, you are right that the cost cannot be compared with foreign imports, because in Singapore we import over 90% of our imports, and from many countries. So even countries within countries that are competing with each other, right, for price difference and all that, because they need to get consumer, they need to sell their products as well. So it's actually a price war in a sense. But going long term, if Singapore wants to be self-sufficient, want to survive, we need to produce locally. And that's why we need more people to go into this area of agri-technology, not just using traditional way of farming. That will not be the way to go. Yeah, I hope I've answered that question. Yeah, cost is a factor, but in time to come, just like any new products, it's in the market new, people are trying to see, look first, and then, but eventually once you take off, right, more players go into the field, obviously the cost will go down. Yeah.
Thanks, Lam. Yeah, our local farmers, I think they'll play even more critical role.
Yes.
One day,
yes, you're right.
Foreign supply actually decide to cut off the supply.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then really we have to be self-sufficient.
On the national level itself, for defense purposes, if we keep depending on foreign imports, they set the price. So it's like pandemic like that, right? Once it's closed down, you don't have food supply, we are in trouble already. Countries like us who are great importers, right? We are in trouble because why? They don't give us the food, or they sell us too expensive. We also can't buy it. Then our citizens, our people will be in trouble, right? But you're right. That cost is a factor that the farmers will have to control, and there are ways to control it. As I mentioned, some of those, as technology increase, for example, LED lights, growth lights, for example, it has decreased tremendously in terms of its cost, right? Because many companies now are going to this area of growth light, Panasonic, Philips, etc. So as more players go into the industry, go into the field, they have to make it more efficient, and obviously that in terms of cost as well, they have to lower the cost. So that's a long-term strategy. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Oilian has one question.
Yeah.
Urban farming is supposed to actually bring down carbon footprint, but
Yes.
building all the infrastructures and the computerizations, aren't they also contributing to carbon footprint?
Yeah, so good question. So that's the reason why, right, for indoor farming, a lot of time, if you look at in Singapore, for example, they don't build specific factories, they don't build specific buildings to house all these indoor farming. They use existing buildings, for example, in some of those warehouses that are not being rented out. They use roof gardens in the car park, multi-story car park in HDB. They use those land that are not used for development, temporary, to actually grow all these plants in a more sustainable way. So in a sense itself, land cost can be minimized in that sense. We have ample kind of roof. Singapore is highly built up. A lot of our roof are not unused. So HDB, for example, if you read the news, they are encouraging urban farmers to use a multi-story car park. They lease out the land to the area to them, and then they do their own planting in that sense. And they are actually quite efficient. In a very small area like a multi-story car park, they can actually produce few tons per month, from my understanding, of vegetable. So, and again, goes to Kitong's just now the question about cost. Eventually, if everybody comes on board, price will go down. Yeah, and to be sustainable, obviously, we try to reduce the use of chemicals, because chemicals also will pollute the waterways, etc. So a lot of time, right, why indoor farming is good, because you can control, right? For example, if you grow your fish in a fish tank in the indoor environment, or grow plants in the indoor environment, you can actually reduce a lot of pest problem, because now the pests can be isolated out from the area. And if you use sensors, you can actually monitor, right, what pest goes inside, what pest can be reduced, and all that. So in a sense, yes, in the initial stage, you may think that carbon footprint will be increased, but actually no, because we don't build, we use existing facilities. Yeah, you put it to an alternative use. Yep, I hope I answered that question also.
Any more questions from anyone?
Yeah, very good, very good. I like all these questions. It's interesting. Yeah, if not, you can always send an email to me, and then we can talk about it. Okay, there's a question from Kitong and Gitiman again. How do we support the local farmers in the meantime till they see break even? Yes, obviously, it is currently quite difficult, because all the farmers, they produce, and then they can't break even. So the issue here again, what we are trying to advocate is that grow plants that are economically viable. That means it's really needed by market. A lot of farmers, when they grow, they think that, oh, the market need this, I grow this. They don't do surveys. They don't understand the market well as to changing palettes of people, etc. That's where agribusiness comes in, because then we're in a class, for example, they'll be taught how to do surveys. You need to do market survey first. So grow plants that the market needs. That's the most important part. You must have a market there in order for you to produce. So a lot of time in the past is like the farmers will grow what they think, okay, the market wants, because they don't have analytics, they don't have the information about where the market is. So now if you understand where the market is and you produce the produce that is required by the market, obviously making break even is not a big issue. Right? In time to come, you should be able to do well, because that's what the market requires. Right? I see in supermarkets, sometimes I see a lot of those kind of like butterhead lettuce, and some of these people are willing to pay, for this so-called exotic kind of vegetable. That's where the market is. And a lot of companies, they are also trying to target the market, whereby they know that this particular crop is very useful or is acceptable, and people are willing to pay a big price for it. Right? So that is the way to go, right? To know the market properly, to know the market well, and you grow to supply to the market.
Due to the higher local operating costs, do you suggest that the local farmers actually grow higher value crops or vegetable instead of those the more normal type?
Yeah, so in a business concept itself, obviously the issue of creating business is to make money. But the issue here is, besides just knowing what the market wants and setting a price for it itself, you must also understand that there are certain social contexts that we have to understand. So in a business itself, you can produce the most valuable, most economical, viable crops. You must also think of the bottom line as to how much resources you use to produce these high-end plants versus producing lower-end plants. So actually, it's a balance that the company or the person that does the farming has to make decision. And the decision comes from knowing what the market requires. So in the end, there's no definite answer to this. It really depends on what you understand about the market. And a lot of time, farmers are not making money from our own research is that because they don't produce what the market requires. Or another thing is, or another area is that everybody starts going to that area. Like for example, if they see that butterhead lettuce is in great demand, everybody starts producing butterhead lettuce. Then in the end, oversupply equates to what? Cheaper cost. And cheaper price for the produce. Then the farmers, they suffer. I mean, the consumers will benefit obviously, but the farmers will suffer because then their earning margins will be lesser and lesser because there's so many players in the market. So you need to find a unique product that you want to market. For example, I know of this company, they are trying to market this thing called ice plant. It's a very, they use it for salads, etc., which is very high value, right? But not many people can afford this, right? So they are going to that niche area where people are willing to pay a price for it, and they actually go all out to try to market this particular product. So marketing also is important. Telling people what your product is, the quality, etc., also is important. So you can see a whole array of making the business viable. It's not just choosing the produce alone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
I think due to interest time, in this case, we'll just take the last question. All right.
Yes. So it's a unit. Well, again, sorry, I just.
It's a unit
again,
on the second level of shop, viable for use for urban farming. For example, the weight of the equipment can sustain the second level of a shop house.
Oh, okay. Obviously, all those building, or I mean, growing on buildings, all this thing, must first establish that the building load itself can take this extra weight on the roof lah. So that one, technically, the civil engineers can advise. But I must say that all those equipment, all those machines, all those things those equipment that we use for growing urban plants itself, all the trays, all the piping, it will not adversely add more weight to the building structure, right? But you got to be careful if you are using really heavy machinery. For example, you have a machine that costs a few kilotons, for example, then you may have to seek approval from the relevant authorities like the Building Construction Authority, BCA, or even HDB if you are using on rooftops and all that. So there are certain technical criteria that you have to satisfy if you want to use all these building structures, right? So that for that, it's depending on the type of building that you have. For example, if it's a old warehouse, for example, right, they don't really have that loading in the past, so you need to actually establish whether it can be done or not in the environment. Yeah, so actually a lot have to you have to understand the facilities that you have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Englam, for sharing all this, and
no problem.
Very interesting talk. Yeah.
Anytime.
Okay. Last but not least, for those of you who would like to be on the email list for all these courses, in this case, you can just scan this QR code, just tick on the courses that you are interested in. And as and when it is up for running or registration, we will email to your mailbox. All right. So yeah. So that's about it. And thank you so much, everyone, for your interesting question as well. You contributed to this very informative exchange this morning. All right. And last but not least, if you have any general inquiries, please feel free to email to us, lactcet@np.edu.sg.